I'm Jim Bradley, head on Boston Public Radio, live at the Boston Public Library. We'll start the show with GBH News analyst Charlie Sennett on the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny after being poisoned in 2020 and spending his final years in prison. Then we'll open the phone and text lines to you about the U.S. not standing up to Vladimir Putin. Then the world-renowned Takesh Quartet is in its 49th year, originating in Hungary. They join us for Live Music Friday ahead of a show tonight at Jordan Hall.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Fani Willis took the stand yesterday. His death is another example of Russian leader Vladimir Putin's brutality.
Vice President Harris opened her speech at the Munich Security Conference, addressing the news that the Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, has died in a Russian prison.
Whatever story they tell, let us be clear. Russia is responsible.
Harris made the point that Navalny's death further underscores the danger that Russia poses to the world and democracy. European confidence in America's commitment has been shaken as further support for Ukraine has stalled in Congress. And former President Donald Trump warned that he would not defend NATO allies who failed to spend enough on defense. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Israeli forces are now inside the largest hospital in southern Gaza. They say Hamas militants have been operating there. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley says Palestinian health authorities warn conditions in the hospital are dire.
According to Gaza's health ministry, there's no power or heating in the hospital, and fuel for generators is set to run out in the next 24 hours. And the ministry said there are patients on respirators and babies in incubators. They called it a catastrophic situation.
NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reporting. President Biden will visit East Palestine, Ohio today. The town was the site of a fiery train derailment last year that spilled toxic chemicals. Julie Grant reports public health experts say there have been gaps in the response to the disaster, and residents have unanswered questions.
The derailment involved 11 train cars of hazardous chemicals, including vinyl chloride, a carcinogen. Doctors who had patients coming in with rashes, headaches, and respiratory issues were advised by the CDC and state health officials not to test them for chemical exposures. University of Massachusetts at Lowell epidemiologist Molly Jacobs says without those tests, residents will never know if their future health problems are connected with chemicals from the derailment.
Is my infertility that I'm experiencing, are the birth defects of my child, is my cancer related to this train disaster?
Those are public health questions residents may put to President Biden. For NPR News, I'm Julie Grant.
In Georgia, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis likely won't be back on the witness stand again today. She was questioned yesterday about her romantic relationship with the special prosecutor in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump and others. Willis is not on trial, but she answered questions from some of the defendant's lawyers. The state judge will determine if Willis and the special prosecutor should be removed from the case. On Wall Street, the Dow was down about 85 points. The Nasdaq is down 63. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The wife of Boston Bruins forward Milan Lucic declined to testify against her husband in a Boston courtroom today. Globe reports that the move, or lack thereof, will likely weaken the domestic violence case that the prosecution says stems from an alleged altercation between the couple in their North End condo last fall. Brittany Lucic, who made a 911 call to Boston police around 1 a.m. November 18th, invoked her marital privilege in Boston Municipal Court, where the 35-year-old Bruins player was scheduled to go on trial today on a single count of assault and battery on a family member, a misdemeanor. Milan Lucic, who has been on indefinite leave from the Bruins since his arrest, pleaded not guilty in Boston Municipal Court last fall and was released on personal recognizance. Don't look now, but there was a Jared Kushner sighting in Cambridge last night. The Harvard grad of 2003 and advisor to former President Donald Trump was interviewed at the Kennedy School and said that a Palestinian state would involve supporting an act of terror perpetrated in Israel. The event, which was moderated by Professor Tariq Mossad, the director of the Middle East Initiative at the Kennedy School, was the first installment in his series of conversations on the war in Gaza. The interview with Kushner comes amid growing criticism of Mossad's Middle East Dialogues initiative. In sports, the Bruins are off until tomorrow. The Celtics are in the All-Star break, not back until Tuesday. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Doris Duke Foundation, which aims to support the well-being of people and the planet for a more creative, equitable, and sustainable future, and listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
He's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. You are listening to Boston Public Radio Live. We are back finally at the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. February 27th here at the Boston Public Library. Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for that very tepid applause. We appreciate that very much.
Yeah, we had technical difficulties for a while. Now everything is straightened out, we hope. Anyway, February 27th, we're here at the Boston Public Library twofer Tuesday with Ask the Attorney General and then Ask the Governor. Later in the 11 o'clock hour today, a special treat. We are going to hear from the Grammy Award-winning Takesh Quartet ahead of a show tonight at the Jordan Hall in collaboration with the Celebrity Series of Boston. Hello, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. Breaking news this morning. You've heard it already. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, an incredibly courageous soul, has died in a Russian prison, most likely murdered at the hands of Russian President Vladimir Putin. We're going to open the lines to discuss this with you and the GOP's refusal in this country to stand up to this murderous dictator, not just in Ukraine, but anywhere. That'll be in about 10 minutes at 877-301-8970. But before we do, we have GBH News analyst Charlie Sennett from the Ground Truth Project here to talk to us about this on Zoom. Charlie, thanks for joining us.
Sure. Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time, Charlie. We appreciate it. I want to play a little sound. Here is Putin opponent Alexei Navalny speaking in 2022 in the terrific documentary, won a lot of awards. Navalny focused on a 2020 assassination attempt against him.
As I became more and more famous guy, I was totally sure that my life became safer and safer because I'm a kind of famous guy. And it will be problematic for them just to kill me.
And boy, were you wrong.
Yes, I was very wrong.
Charlie, tell us about what this means. Alexei Navalny, 47 years old, father of two. His wife just yesterday was interviewed about him. Now she's his widow and said he was doing great. She had no idea. What do we know?
Well, that film is extraordinary, and what's great about that film is it captures what will be his legacy, which is this defiance, this sense that he brought a very sophisticated, almost theater to his opposition to Putin, to his call for more human rights in his native Russia. He made it interesting and exciting, and when you see that film, you feel that. You know, last was the summer that the film came out in 2022, or it might have been 23. Let me think about that. It was 22.
Whatever, I think it was 22, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a chance to really sit with the film director, Brian Rohr, but also with his family. They were there and had a chance to really meet his extraordinary wife and his extraordinary daughter. And his wife, Yulia, is so powerful and strong in her resistance. And, you know, you feel this with Dasha, that she is a college student at Stanford, and she has the same sort of dignity and just a paragon of strength, absolutely. So I think a big part of his legacy is that the opposition is strong because he was creative in the way he ignited it with social media. If you see in that film when he does the How Bizarre video, when he lived through the poisoning where they tried to kill him, and he lived through that and then returns bravely. Some might say, you know, like question the judgment of his return, because he was, of course, immediately arrested and given this sham trial, sham sentence of 19 years in the prison system in which he was killed. No matter how you look at it, that sentence killed him. And that's real and strong. And I think the legacy will live on, though. I guarantee you, through his family. His daughter is extraordinary.
Well, let's talk.
I can't wait to see her keep the voice coming forward.
Let's talk about the legacy of opposition, though. It was Navalny yesterday. It was Nemtsov, killed on a bridge while walking with his girlfriend in 2015, another opposition leader. Does this cause the opposition, such as it is in Russia, to recoil with fear, or does it embolden them? I mean, what's the consequence of this in your estimation?
Great question, and I think we'll see. It's very hard to read what's going to happen in Russia. Certainly Putin is a master of fear, There are some people who are very focused on the timing of his death, that it is happening just as the world's leaders are gathering in Munich for a security conference where Putin's real strong authoritarian streak and his intentions to expand Russian influence and his invasion of Ukraine are on the table in a critical moment. That timing was pointed out to me by a friend and colleague, Jennifer Griffin, who worked in Russia, covered the story closely, now covers the Pentagon for Fox News, extraordinary reporter who pointed out something really interesting, which is, knowing him well, she was saying on Fox today that this is a mafia-style message. This is how Putin rolls. We don't know the details of exactly how he died, but to call it a murder, to say that Putin is responsible for his death is certainly fair. We'll get more details, but the timing will be interesting. When was he found dead? When was he, quote, dead or killed? And the timing is just too coincidental for those who really follow Russia and watch it closely, that right after it's announced, Zelensky walks on stage in Munich. You have his now widow, Yulia, there in Munich as well.
I didn't
and
know
then,
that.
of course, the powerful speech by Vice President Harris. She really was compelling, and I thought really presented well what this means for the world at a time when anyone who is questioning whether or not we need to stand up to Putin, whether or not we need to accept that we don't have to stand by Ukraine in its dire moment of need, should look at this murder and realize that Putin is not going to stop. He will kill his opposition. He will do whatever it takes to continue to put forward his dreams of this greater Russia. And I think that's the meaning of the moment. I think the legacy for Navalny will be that his defiance. I think he truly gave voice to a kind of defiance that Russia has not seen. Sadly, this murder, if we can call it that, occurred just 6 months before the election, in which Putin will face no opposition, and he will be elected. We can guarantee you that, and he will continue to shape modern Russia and the way it carries itself in the world, which we have learned through Ukraine, is with indiscriminate bombing and with unprovoked invasions of a neighboring country. And I think the whole world is watching right now at how this happened, what happened, and what it means for the future of the world, but particularly what it means in Ukraine, I think, and how in this country, if anyone needed to steal their confidence in the need to support Ukraine, I would hope they'd look at this tragic loss of life at the hands of Putin and say, this is the proof you need to know we have to stand by Ukraine.
Let's get back to what we do know about Alexei Navalny, that the claim is that he did not feel well after a walk, and then he came back and he collapsed after this walk, which I think a lot of people are questioning if that's really what happened, that he was in this prison that was in a place above the Arctic Circle, which looks like hell on Earth, even though with climate change, maybe it's not as cold there as it usually was, but it looks...
It's hell frozen over.
Yeah, it looks like hell frozen over. I thought it was very interesting, Associated Press story today, that he seemed to be most effective he was very effective on social media with young Russians, and they talked about how a lot of his pitch was less about democratic ideals and human rights, which is what I mistakenly thought was a lot about what he talked about. It was about Russian citizens being cheated out of their money, a party of crooks and thieves, he referred to the Putin regime, in the sense that the oligarchs and Vladimir Putin were getting richer and richer and richer while they were struggling. So talk about his politics in his appeal to Russians.
His greatest works were journalistic. I mean, they were documentaries that really challenged the kleptocracy that Putin has presided over, and all of those incredibly, just wealthy and corrupt individuals who surround Putin's leadership. But I do think it's fair to say that in highlighting that corruption, he was highlighting the ways in which the future of Russia was stolen from the Russian people by Putin. That there is a chance for it to be part of the world, and he reached out to the world. His TikTok videos are humorous and creative, and really important to know that his messaging to a wider world through social media was effective, it was widespread. I do think it was about human rights in the sense that it was about how the Russian people have seen their futures stolen, and they've seen that they are not allowed to have freedom. And he has always pointed out the ways in which Putin has tarnished and eroded any sense of truth in Russia. And that is a clear part of his message, his legacy. I would connect that to rights, the right to a freedom of the press, the right to freedom of expression, the right to live your life freely in a country that should be thriving and that instead lives under the tyranny of Putin and is so surrounded now and sort of isolated from the whole world. I think that was, definitely a message to the Russian people, what he meant by opposition to Putin.
Charlie Sennett, we really appreciate you making time for us this morning. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Be well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We were just talking to Charlie Sennett. Now it's your turn. 877-301-8970. Any reflections on the death, murder of Alexei Navalny, but more importantly, your reflection on the isolationist Trump toadies in Congress who've decided it's okay to abandon the Ukrainian people who are having the courage to stand up to this murderous dictator. Our number is 877-301-8970. And do you think it will embarrass those Republicans into doing the right thing and support the fight to preserve democracy in the country of Ukraine?
You know, I just want to mention a little bit more than a week ago, we had two Ukrainians who are musicians who were here to play with the Ukrainian symphony, the orchestra
Symphony,
of Ukraine. They were playing up in Worcester, and we got to meet them. And I was ashamed, really, when I shook their hands because I'm an American, they're Ukrainians, and my government is pulling the rug out from under these people after the terror that Vladimir Putin has inflicted upon them. And, you know, people say, oh, no, we can't spend that money, we can't spend that money. Well, if there's one thing we learned, we had a lot of isolationist tendencies in our country over the decades, obviously. We all heard the famous stories about Churchill having to convince FDR to get involved in World War II. But since then, we've had NATO, we've had these agreements among free countries that we're going to protect each other, and we're not going to let, and even though Ukraine was not a member of NATO, it was an expectation that the United States, as the richest country in the world, was going to step in. And I just felt ashamed when they talked about, one of those musicians talked about his sister having to run to fallout shelters every day, and how horrible their life was. And these people on the Republican side in Congress are just saying, hey, drop dead, literally.
You know, I should be a little fairer than I was. There are a lot of Republicans in the Senate who joined with Democrats, including Mitch McConnell, who are supporting funding for Ukraine. It's these clueless people in the House of Republicans controlling the House of Representatives who decided it's fine because it'll make Donald Trump happy to abandon a people who are courageously doing what we don't have the courage to do, which is fight to preserve their democracy. 877-301-8970. We want to get your reaction for the next few minutes. Let's start with Peter in Boston. Peter, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
Boy, talk about a martyr for democracy. If people are serious about supporting democracy, we should be building shrines to this guy. It's just unbelievable. He was free. He was in Western Europe being treated, went back voluntarily, published his flight information, went back there, was arrested, and here we are. With respect to MAGA and their thinking, I mean, I would go further than they're just craven and gutless. I would say that, you know, you think about Trump's position in the federal court, that he's free to assassinate political rivals.
That's exactly right. That's what his lawyer said.
He's straight in line with Putin. They're of one mind. And, you know, you're starting to see journalists and some academics write about how we keep questioning how MAGA people can stand by this guy. And it's because they're more aligned with Putin and his kind of worldview or universe view than they are with us, with true democracy. They think the West is, you know, morally decrepit, and these people are white and Christian, and they associate more with them than us. So you know, it's a travesty. But I did want to remind people that this is what the Republican presidential candidate believes he can do if he gets back in.
Peter, that was an excellent first call. Thank you very much for making it. And by the way, Charlie mentioned, you and I mentioned this film. I think it's a CNN film, Navalny. The incredible part of this, we talk about a courageous person, as Peter just said, to go back to his country when he knew what might be in store for him. Do you remember his sense of humor throughout this whole thing?
Very funny.
Incredibly.
It's on HBO, I think, isn't it?
Oh, is it HBO?
I think
thought
it's
it was
on
CNN.
Well,
I don't know what it is.
I could be wrong. I think it was on HBO. Oh, it's a partnership with both. So we're both half right. Anyway, when you see him, he's very charming. He's very handsome. He's got these big, bright blue eyes.
How courageous.
He's very sardonic. He's got a sarcastic sense of humor, and it's really worth watching. And to see the crowds that swarmed around him before he got in trouble, and people's excitement and faith in this, very talented, charismatic leader, and 47 years old. It's beyond. I mean, it's just horrible. Here's Paul from Braintree. I wonder what Comrade Tucker Carlson is saying about Putin today.
Perfect.
And that is because Tucker Carlson, I think, humiliated himself by doing this interview with Vladimir Putin, in which Putin hardly let him get a word in edgewise. But he, of course, was the guy that was fired by Fox News, involved with their massive lawsuit payment for lying about the allegedly stolen election, which wasn't stolen. Paul from Melrose, thank you for calling.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be on. How you guys doing?
We're good. Thank you for calling.
So, I mean, you captured it in a nutshell, and I wonder, you guys are serious journalists. At what point do you not take this guy seriously, or do you have to keep paying attention? The timing, unbelievable, but he has been this way for a long time.
Which he, Putin or Trump? Who's the he?
Oh, no, I'm talking about Tucker Carlson.
Oh, Tucker, I'm sorry. He has never been taken seriously on this show. The unfortunate thing, Paul, he is taken seriously by many millions of people in the United States. But go ahead.
No, I find it mind-boggling. So back in the day, I faced the ire of Tucker Carlson. So maybe it's personal over a Black Lives Matter thing. And the traction he gets is unbelievable and, frankly, un-American, anti-democrat.
Paul, thank you for the call. We appreciate your thoughts.
We're talking about the death of Alexei Navalny in a prison camp up near the Arctic Circle. We're talking about our abandonment, so far at least, of Ukraine in this moment when Vladimir Putin, I'm sure, is licking his chops over the fact that we seem to be abandoning Ukraine. You can give us a call, 877-301-8970. You can call or text at that number. You're listening.
Women in Dubai's royal family have risked their lives to escape its head. That includes Princess Latifa, one of the Sheikh's daughters who fled by boat.
Latifa is identified and is dragged overboard, screaming, "Shoot me now, don't take me back."
Her story and the day's top global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Hanover Theatre, presenting My Fair Lady, boasting classic songs such as I Could Have Danced All Night and Wouldn't It Be Loverly. Bartlett Shear's glowing production is on stage February 16th through 18th. Tickets at thehanovertheatre.org. And Showcase Cinemas. On February 18th, you can see a screening of Selma in partnership with the Museum of African American History. Tickets available at showcasecinemas.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library finally again, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. On February 27th, which is a Tuesday, we'll be here at the library for both an hour of the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, followed by an hour of the Governor Maura Healey. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the death of Alexei Navalny, the foremost critic of Vladimir Putin, 47 years old. Killed in that jail facility, as you say, near the Arctic there. Our question for you is not only your reaction to his life and his death, but also does it change the state of play for us at home in terms of supporting Ukraine, supporting our NATO allies, etc. And by the way, it's not just Trump and Republicans in the House. They've had a real effect where nearly half of the Republicans in this country don't think we should be giving aid to Ukraine either. By the way, Charlie Sennett a minute ago mentioned Vice President Harris's comments about Navalny at that conference. Here's just a little snippet of what she had to say.
And if confirmed, this would be a further sign of Putin's brutality. Whatever story they tell, let us be clear, Russia is responsible.
Putin is responsible. 877-301-8970.
In reference to Trump's calls to not protect NATO, allies who don't pay their bills, why is no one reminding Trump that he doesn't pay his bills and has declared bankruptcy 6 times? And another texter says, Alexei Navalny is the hero of democracy, something many in our country will never understand.
Sadly, I think that's true. Ann, you're in Lincoln. You're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you very much for calling. Hi.
Yes, hi, Jim and Marjorie. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm really sad about Navalny, but I'm not surprised. I think everybody knew this would be the outcome ultimately. I'm really unhappy, though, about what's happening in Congress with the support for Ukraine. I'm a baby boomer and the daughter of a World War II veteran, and I can't believe that Americans who have relatives, grandfathers, parents that fought in Europe against the fascists would let this happen to Ukraine at this point. And I've been thinking lately, we need a workaround around this Congress and maybe a separate fund to fund this military aid coming from Americans that want to support it. And I want to throw out 2 numbers for you that I heard early this week. One is that people spent well over $20 billion just betting on the Super Bowl last week. And they also spent over $20 billion on Valentine's Day.
Wow.
And we're looking for something on the order of $60 billion to get to the Ukrainians to save them. And I'm wondering, why can we not do this?
Well, Ann, can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you for a second? One, I don't think Taylor Swift's going to come to the rescue, number one. And number two, that lets this government off the hook. It's not the obligation of individuals. It's the obligation of our government to do the right thing. And what we and other voters in this country have got to tell these cowards who are cowed by every single thing that Donald Trump says, that will not stand.
Actually,
that's where the money's got to come from. That's where the support's got to come from. And so while I admire your creativity,
I don't know, Jim.
I think that's it.
I kind of like Ann's idea.
What? We're going to raise money?
A GoFundMe page for Ukraine.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Do you think that any of these people who are in gerrymandered districts who are very unlikely to lose any of their seats are going to do anything about this?
Well, I think that Mike Johnson, who's in trouble,
Marjorie Taylor Greene,
I think the speaker may feel some pressure here. Actually, yes, I do.
Well, I do. I hope so.
I'm not sure his constituents in Louisiana care, but
I mean, everything now is in a lot of. This is nothing really new for politicians, but at some point, a lot of politicians would say, I can't, that's a step too far for me. Mm-hmm. It's a step too far for me. For a lot of them now, there is no step too far. It's all about just retaining your job, whatever it's going to take. Maybe Johnston, Mr. Religious Guy, will feel a little bit differently, but I don't know.
By the way, I don't know the precise number. It was 15, 16, 17 Republicans led by Mitch McConnell in the Senate, who are just as conservative as the people in the House, voted for the bipartisan bill to fund Ukraine.
Yes, but the problem is the House.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who in the House is going to change.
Well, I think that's where the pressure has got to go. Maybe you're right. I hope you're not. John in Westford, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about the killing, I think, of Alexei Navalny and what the implications are in the United States. Hi.
Hi. I think a lot of the support is waning because people are seeing the war as just not winnable. Right now, there's the average age of a Ukrainian soldier. Reports are saying 40 to 50 years old.
It's higher and higher, yeah.
And it's higher and higher. And the death rate, and this is the Western media, is saying it's up to 400,000 or 500,000, whereas the Russian side is 30 to 40,000. So, and you could skew it the other way too. That's the Western side. So I hate to say it, but it just might not be attainable.
Well, kind of interrupt you, John. I subscribe to the notion Putin wins in Ukraine. The question is who's next? and with a Donald Trump who says, you don't pay your bills. If you're like me, as that texter said, and don't pay your bills, we don't support you. It's basically an invitation for this murderer to continue trying to take over that part of Europe. So I hear you, and your analysis may be right. I don't know. But if it is, it's incredibly short-sighted and incredibly lacking of caring for our fellow human beings. So again, you may be right. I just hope you're not. John, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8097. Can you imagine? The cowardice of most of these people who tremble when Donald Trump posts on Truth Social, as it's called, as compared to a guy, as that first caller said, who traveled back to Russia from the freedom of Western Europe, knowing that the end game was probably going to be his end, but because he cared about his country and his countrymen, decided to do that. And we have these pathetic creatures who pretend to represent this democracy. It's just pathetic.
You know, I don't usually do this, but let's play the sound again because
of what?
Of Navalny.
Oh yeah, it was great
talking
sound.
about
Great sound.
how he thought that his fame might protect him. John will play the sound again from the 2022 documentary Navalny, focused on this 2020 assassination attempt on him, the poisoning.
As I became more and more famous guy, I was totally sure that my life became safer and safer because I'm a kind of famous guy. And it will be problematic for them just to kill me.
And boy, were you wrong.
Yes, I was very wrong.
By the way, if you haven't seen the whole film, he's not an egomaniac.
He was
being funny.
With humor.
With humor.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. And part of the shows him like sitting at a table, a very stark table, being interviewed by the documentarian. And it's just great. And as I said, you said it was on CNN. I said it was on HBO.
And it's both, apparently.
I guess it's on both, but you have a chance to watch it this weekend if you haven't already seen it.
Let's try to squeeze one more in. Bill in a car, you're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you much for calling. Hi.
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 Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to introduce one word into the conversation that I haven't heard in any conversation about Russia's what Russia's doing, and that's appeasement.
That's fair.
It's a loaded word, and I think it applies.
Yeah, well, that brings us back to Neville Chamberlain in World War II, right? The appeasement of Hitler and the idea that you could let him take, maybe you could just let him take Poland and things would stop. Maybe you could just let him take Czechoslovakia and things would stop. I mean, that's a great point, Bill. Thank you.
I mean, that is what you know, the expression that I have become obsessed with, I mentioned this the other day, how do they live with themselves? How do these people live with themselves? I mean, I operate in the assumption that most of them know what the right thing to do is, but fear of Trump, primarying them or something, fear of a God, how do you live with yourself?
Well,
how do you face your kids at the end of the day when you're abandoning a people because of your fear of one self-serving, narcissistic lunatic? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I don't know, Jim. We're waiting to see if the verdict comes down about how much at least the narcissistic guy is going to owe.
Supposed to come today in the fraud trial in Manhattan.
We're waiting for any moment. Let's hope it's a high one. Anyway.
Well, can I tell you, before we get to that, we're going to talk to Callie Crossley about it later. Last night, a lot of experts, including a guy who wrote, what's it called, The Big Cheat, about Donald Trump, say he may not even have the money to appeal if he loses this on top of the E. Jean Carroll verdict from a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, they had a story today in the Globe about the worth of office buildings is declining because so few of them are full anymore, and that's the same problem, one of the many problems that Trump faces in New York City, that his property, which is valued over $2 billion, might be not worth that anymore because the offices aren't
really
filled.
Sad.
Anyway, we are moving on for a very welcome break. It is Live Music Friday, and today we've got the Grammy-winning Takesh Orchestra Quartet, well, they're not an orchestra, they are a quartet, excuse me. They are here playing some unbelievably gorgeous music ahead of a show tonight at the Celebrity Series of Boston. They'll join us next. Don't go away. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.
How can the U.S. make amends for the legacy of slavery?
Is there really a feasible way to repay Black people?
For almost 400 years, the history of Black Boston has been marked by injustice.
As Boston goes on a journey to answer questions,
Padma Lakshmi, inclusiveleadership.com. And McLean Middleton, a regional law firm with over 100 attorneys and locations in Woburn and Boston. serving clients for over 100 years in the areas of corporate law, tax law, litigation, and estate planning. McLean.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Bradley. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. February 27th, which is a Tuesday, the Attorney General will join us for the first hour of the show, for an hour of Ask the Attorney General, where you can ask her questions, etc. The Governor will join us for the second hour of the show. That's February 27th. And boy, if you need a break after the pain and sadness of the first segment, it is time for Live Music Friday on Boston Public Radio. We're joined now by two members, there'll be two more in a couple minutes, of the world-renowned, Grammy-winning Takas Quartet. They're formed in Hungary nearly 50 years ago. The group now resides primarily in Colorado, but they're on tour across the U.S., playing a brand new futuristic work that was, we'll talk about it, that was co-commissioned by the Celebrity Series of Boston. They'll play that piece tonight, by the way, during a show at the New England Conservatory's Great Jordan Hall. The website for tickets is celebrityseries.org. Edward Dusenberry has been with them for decades. Ed, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for being here. And Andras Fahir, how close was that, Andras?
I'm extremely impressed.
You're impressed? Jim Browdy is how it's, okay, fine. Okay, is one of the founding members of the group. And we're thrilled to hear in a little while. We'll talk to two other members, Harumi Rhodes and Richard O'Neill. But for now, welcome to both of you. It's great to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. So, Anders, let's start with you since you are a founding member. Tell us how this all came to be, and what does Takács mean?
Gábor Takács was our original leader, but only in the first 17 years. And we moved to the States to the express invitation of the University of Colorado in Boulder, who had an admirable past of supporting chamber music. Juilliard Quartet, Hungarian Quartet were frequent guests, and they always got major support from the university itself. We got invited almost 40 years ago, and we loved the place. We stayed, and it's the ideal venue to return to and then travel all over.
By the way, it's the ideal venue because that's the state that threw Trump off the ballot. But we will not get into that with these particular gentlemen. How did the four of you come together there, Edward?
So I was studying at Juilliard School early in '93, and they were looking for a new first violinist. My teacher recommended me, and I got so lucky to go out for one snowy day in January, and it seemed like it would be a great adventure if they chose me, and then they did.
It's, you know, this is, Marjorie has been listening to classical music, chamber music her whole life.
My mother was a musician, that's why.
I am a late comer, but my sense is that we're experiencing a renaissance an embrace of this kind of music. And maybe I'm just judging it by myself. Andras, do you feel it as well or no?
I do feel it. I'd love to think many noble reasons why young people start quartet, and also the recent difficulty playing in an orchestra.
Because of COVID, you mean? Because of COVID?
Well, finances.
Finances
are interesting most of the time, and string quartet is difficult, but somehow a different piece of unit.
Well, I read where you do 80 concerts a year. That's a lot of concerts, right?
And even more practice. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Is that because you're gonna play 80 concerts so you make sure you can put food on the table, or is it because classical musics don't generally, unless you get to some place like the Boston Symphony or the New York Philharmonic, the salaries are not what they don't represent the talent.
Yeah, I think it's more that to sound really unified. I mean, a quartet's kind of like a family, and to sound really unified, it's something you want to keep doing and really get to know each other, and it's a little bit easier actually to sort of keep playing.
Do you have to like each other?
It helps a lot.
And do you?
Yeah, I mean, you should ask this gentleman. We've been playing together for 31 years.
We are flattered by each other. That I think we love each other much more than usual, or much more than we should be.
Yeah.
That's actually a beautiful sentiment, particularly in these times. You're going to play for us, and then your two colleagues are going to join us and play again. But my understanding of the program tonight is Haydn, then at the end Beethoven, and this, can I call it a fairly radical piece in the middle? How does that all fit together?
I think all of these pieces, when we're playing them, we're trying to create a sense of immediacy, spontaneity, and sort of recreate the sense of discovery when these pieces were first held, and that's what pulls them together. So this Haydn movement we're going to play in a few minutes is a very lively kind of scherzo with a lot of jokes in it, and kind of if you were trying to dance to it, you'd have a few issues. You'll hear a little drone section, which is fun. So I think there's a spirit of delight and sometimes surprise that runs through the whole program.
Great.
You know what I wondered? Jim just mentioned the Beethoven and the Haydn, but I wonder whether there are people that are modern. I mean, everybody knows Haydn, everybody knows Handel, everybody knows Bach, everybody knows the from centuries ago. But are there people like in the last 200 years that we're going to remember centuries going forward? I mean, who are the great composers, contemporaries now, or like in the last 200 years, you think?
I mean, that's such a great question, and I wish I could give you the answer. I think all one can do is to really commit to the contemporary pieces that one's playing, and certainly this piece is getting fantastic reactions, and then just hope for the best that they'll be for later ages as well.
Edward, the answer was supposed to be Engwenyama. Well, that's what you're supposed to say since she composed the second piece, but I'll help you out here. So, gentlemen, if you want to gently put your headphones down and join your colleagues for this piece by Haydn, which you'll be playing in a second. Do you have the ticket information there, Marjorie, you want to share with people?
If I have the ticket information, let me see right here. Yes, you can get tickets. The website is celebrityseries.org. That's celebrityseries.org. And the performance is tonight at the New England Conservatory's Jordan Hall in collaboration with the Celebrity Series of Boston.
And here they are. Talkash, welcome to you all.
That was absolutely gorgeous. We're going to hear another song in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk to the musicians again. And I want to mention again, if you are trying to get to this concert tonight, tickets are available at celebrityseries.org.
Now joining us is Richard O'Neill, one of the 4 members of Takash, and Harumi Rhodes. Welcome to you both. It's great. That was beautiful.
Thank
you. Beautiful. Thank you.
So,
Can I say one thing?
What?
As great as the sound is, I say this all the time about live music, watching you play is almost as wonderful as listening to you play. It's so different when you're in the presence of the musicians. So we really urge people to go tonight, and thank you for doing this. It really
cheers
means a
to
lot
live music.
us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Cheers to live music. So Harumi, I understand you're friends with the composer Egwenyama, who's done Flow, which is totally otherworldly. So tell us about the composer and tell us about the song.
Yeah, so Tula is a wonderful, wonderful violist. And so we met over 20 years ago as chamber musicians, as friends. And we were playing in the summer in a summer festival and got to know her. So I know her as a performer. In the recent past, I heard some of her compositions. She's become a composer as well. And I was just amazed at how her personality, her performance personality, comes through in the composing, and she's a virtuoso. She's amazing, an incredible woman, and with lots of positive energy. And after hearing some of her pieces, I spoke to the guys, and we approached her about writing something for us. So it was very exciting.
So let's speak to one of the guys for a second here. So Richard, I think we learned that Andras and Edward have been playing together 31 years. How long have you two been part of this?
I'm the newest newbie.
How new is new?
June of 2020. And I think Harumi was in 2018.
2018.
So how long does it take for new players to mesh as beautifully as you just did with 2 people who've been playing together for a long time, Harumi?
I mean, there's so many ways to answer that question. I think we had kind of a whole mixture of things going on. Richard and I have been playing together for also over 20 years.
Oh, you have?
We've known each other for a long time. We were
great.
classmates, and
Where?
we both went to Juilliard.
We did.
And we also spent some summers at the Marlborough Music Festival and toured together and did lots of fun projects together. So it's a small classical music world, in case you didn't notice. And we've all intertwined and played together in the past. But to really gel together as a group, it takes time on one hand, but on the other hand, you really learn on the job. You learn on stage. And so that's what makes it so fun, I think.
So tell us, Richard, about Flow. I understand this is supposed to be something about what it sounded like at the beginning of the universe, like the Big Bang, and before and right after the Big Bang.
Yes, Tula has a divinity degree from Harvard, and she has a lot of amazing interests. And she spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out I think the assignment was the natural world. What we're going to play for you today is the 3rd movement. So the 1st movement deals with the Big Bang. This 3rd movement is a quark scherzo.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't even know what a quark is.
Please?
You got to
is
explain
that?
to the non-physics people what a quark is.
Well, a violist trying to explain physics.
How about 2 radio talk show hosts trying to understand physics? So go ahead.
The literal translation of a scherzo was a joke, so let me go ahead. In physics, I believe a proton is made up of 2 up quarks, 2 positively charged quarks, and 1 down quark. And a neutron is made up of 2 down quarks and 1 up quark.
Okay, here's the deal. You cannot look at your iPad. Say that again. Go ahead.
A proton.
It's okay.
So how does that manifest itself in the music? How does this play out in the music, Harumi?
Yeah, so I think, it's this scherzo, or this sort of fast dance-like music.
Is that what scherzo means?
Well, it's sort of a joke. It's sort of it's like a minuet or a waltz or something in 3 that has that dance-like quality. And so it's kind of a humorous musical representation of these quarks, these smaller fundamental components that make up all of matter. And so it's a very cool way of musically showing that in kind of a humorous, positive way. I know Richard wanted to just...
yeah, some weird thing you're doing with the bow.
So I'm not just holding it as a prop.
That I read about that you're supposed to do with the bow. And
He's going to do it.
Yeah, so Richard was going to show just the cork representation.
So what Tula does, it's a little bit like a lot of old composers. What they do, they use pitches to represent different concepts. So the down quarks and the up quarks are notated. So the proton is the up, two ups, and then there's a down, and then there's two down. And hydrogen and helium play a huge part of the piece. So she actually notates those periodic elements in the piece. So this whole, when you listen to this live performance we're going to play for you, you'll hear Andras on the cello start this entire piece with those quark pitches.
And does Andras have to reach down to the floor to start them? I read that. He's going to have to really go down there.
You have to come tonight to see all of the stuff.
So obviously this woman
They have to join their colleagues in about 30 seconds.
Super genius. I mean, composes, performs, quarks, physics, the whole
her
thing.
buddy. She would know. Okay, so that's the deal.
Okay, super genius.
So what piece of flow are you playing for us?
We're going to play the third movement, the quark scherzo.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you both. You want to rejoin your colleagues? Again, you want to give the information on tickets and location, Margaret?
New England Conservatory's Jordan Hall is tonight in collaboration with the Celebrity Series of Boston. For tickets, the website is celebrityseries.org. Jordan Hall is an extraordinary place to see a concert, too.
By the way, our coworkers say that I am the show's down quark and Marjorie is our up quark.
That's right.
Keep that in mind. Gentlemen and lady, we're thrilled to have you. Take it away.
been listening to the Grammy-winning Talkish Quartet. Their show is tonight at New England Conservatory.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision.
He was 47. As NPR's Charles Maynes reports, Navalny had been serving out a lengthy prison term, widely seen as punishment for his years of criticizing Russian President Vladimir Putin.
News of Navalny's death came from the Federal Penitentiary Service in Russia's Arctic, where Navalny had been serving out a 19-year sentence. In a statement, prison authorities said Navalny lost consciousness after a walk in the prison yard, and that attempts by medical staff to resuscitate him, quote, failed to yield positive results. Navalny's family could not immediately confirm the news, but have repeatedly expressed concerns about his health and treatment in prison. In 2020, Navalny was the victim of a near-fatal poisoning attack he blamed on the Russian government. The Kremlin spokesman said President Vladimir Putin had been informed and that prison medics were working to identify the cause of death. Charles Maynes, NPR News, Moscow.
President Biden is expected to speak shortly about Navalny's death. Vice President Kamala Harris says if the Russian prison report is true, it's clear who is in Miami today. A former U.S. diplomat is being formally charged with acting as an agent of the Cuban government. NPR's Greg Allen reports Manuel Rocha has been in federal custody since he was arrested in December.
Rocha is not expected to be in court. The 73-year-old filed papers waiving his right to appear at the arraignment and said he's pleading not guilty to the indictment. Rocha faces charges he acted as an illegal agent of a foreign government while serving in various roles with the State Department, including ambassador to Bolivia. Prosecutors say he was first recruited by Cuba in the 1970s. He was arrested late last year after a series of meetings with an undercover FBI employee who posed as a Cuban intelligence agent. His arraignment was postponed twice before, an indication Rocha may be engaged in discussions with the government about a possible plea agreement. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis will not testify for a second day after all. Lawyers for former President Trump are seeking to disqualify her in the state election interference case because she had a personal relationship with another prosecutor. Yesterday, Willis denied any impropriety, saying she is not the one on trial. A lawyer for her office said that Willis will not be questioned again. Checking Wall Street, the Dow is down 1 point. The S&P is up almost 4. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Harvard University facing an unprecedented congressional subpoena from our higher ed desk. GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports that the House Education and Workforce Committee is asking the university to turn over private documents from their ongoing investigation into alleged anti-Semitism on campus.
The Republican-led committee had been threatening to subpoena Harvard for weeks. University leaders, including interim president Alan Garber, are being told to produce documents by March 4th. The school has not yet said whether it might try to fight the order. It's the first time in the Education Committee's nearly 160-year history that it's issued a subpoena to a college. Some academic leaders are worried that it's a sign of what they say is further government encroachment into higher education. Kirk Carapezza, GBH News, 89.7.
In a Boston courtroom today, prosecutors have dropped their domestic assault case against Boston Bruins forward Milan Lucic. This after revealing that his wife declined to testify and a judge ruled that her 911 call was inadmissible. Assistant District Attorney Samuel Jones had argued this morning to use the 911 call in the trial, which was scheduled to begin this afternoon. However, defense attorney Gary Pelletier says that 911 call failed to identify Milan Lucic as the suspect, and during questioning, the 911 dispatcher who took the call confirmed that she never asked the caller for her last name or to identify her husband by name. No word on how the Bruins will handle it from here. 36 degrees, this is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Imaginable Futures, celebrating the hard work, commitment, and achievements of the 1 in 5 college students who are parents. More at imaginablefutures.com. This is NPR.
It's Jim Braude Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. 2 quick programming notes. On February 27th, here at the Boston Public Library, we have a twofer going on. On that particular Tuesday, the 27th, we'll have Ask the Attorney General with Andrea Joy Campbell and Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. So joining us on Zoom because her Uber driver did not show up. Maybe she should have taken the T. That's a joke. Is GBH's Callie Crossley. Callie, of course, is host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch her at Sunday nights right here. Listen to her laughing at 89.7 at 6 o'clock. She does Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition and, of course, is a host for The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 o'clock. Sorry to miss you, Callie.
Yes, it's very frustrating. I had a reality check when Jared came out and said, "Why are you still here?"
So the Uber just didn't show up? That was the bottom line?
First one showed up, canceled, and the other one is somewhere in the hills of wherever.
Okay.
So,
He's got other things to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's start. Many of us saw Fani Willis, the DA down in Georgia, who's trying to prosecute the former president for trying to steal the election and search for votes, et cetera. And down in Georgia, many of his compatriots have already pled guilty involving this whole situation. I'm going to play a little sound of Fani Willis, the DA of Fulton County, during a hearing yesterday on whether she should be disqualified from prosecuting the Georgia election interference case. Here she is.
I object to you getting records. You've been intrusive into people's personal lives. You're confused. You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Wow.
So her father's been on the stand for much of this morning, too, perhaps talking about his advice to her to keep a lot of cash on hand, 6 months' worth of cash in the house in case of an emergency. But in any case, what do you think of this case? Fani Willis was described as hot by one of the commentators this morning, where her former boyfriend, Wade, was described as cool. But what did you make of this case, her testimony, et cetera?
Well, speaking of Uber, I was in an Uber yesterday, and the driver had the live broadcast on, and I thought, is this a drama? I mean, and then I realized what it was, because it sounded like a fictional situation. That was before Fani came on. That was just the opening shots from the defense and the prosecution, and it was very intense. So that's the first thing. I agree with Chuck Todd. I heard him on your show yesterday saying this is a lot of attention for something that shouldn't be getting this attention when she is not at the center of it. She's ancillary at best, and it makes no sense. On the other hand, then I say, okay, she defended herself very strongly. Was that a mistake to have done so? I can only imagine the kind of hate mail she's been getting since she took on the case with Trump. And so she was determined that if she's going to go down, I'm going to go down saying my truth out here with folks that are not going to appreciate it. So I don't know. I thought maybe if that was the only time she was testifying, but she's going back on the stand today, I guess. And I don't know about 2 times.
Well, no, they just said that she's actually not going to be back.
Good.
That was the
Okay.
expert. But Marjorie and I talked a lot about this morning after we saw Jeffrey Toobin, the formerly disgraced, but now back on CNN.
He's back.
Legal analyst and,
I love
and
him.
writer.
Disgrace and all.
Chuck Todd, as you say, touched on this. Judge Gertner touched on it yesterday, but I'm listening to him last night. And the issues before the court in terms of disqualification, allegedly, are when did their relationship start and did she profit financially? And Toobin cut through the whole damn thing and said, if she profited financially or had an inappropriate relationship in terms of her profession with this guy, that's an ethical issue. It has nothing to do, zero to do, as to whether or not she is the right person to be prosecuting the president and these dozen plus others. And I thought about it. It is totally true. Again, this may be unprofessional, unethical behavior. I don't know what the determination's going to be, but it essentially is 2 days of distractions, as you say, as Todd and Gertner and others said. But my fear, Callie, and you may have said this to me this morning, Marjorie, is that regardless of the determination, and almost all the legal experts say she's not going to be disqualified, her office will not be disqualified, that has potential to taint the jury when they're considering Trump's alleged illegal behavior. No?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. One piece of information that I didn't know, maybe you all did, that may help with that is that they broke up. So they're, so I didn't know that before. So,
well, we know part of the reason why we broke up.
Right.
Because apparently he said to her, the one thing a woman can do for me is make me a sandwich. So the only thing a woman can do for me is make a sandwich.
True?
Yes.
Yes.
And she said, that's not me. I'm an equal with you. And we have a little sound now from the father. I was mentioning how not only did her father advise her to keep the cash on hand for 6 months of expenses in case of an emergency, I guess he told her to keep $200 on cash on any date she went with in case things went awry, and so he could she could bail out. So anyway, here's the father.
Actually, we need another minute.
Oh, we do.
Pull it up.
We need another minute.
Great,
okay.
but,
yeah.
But
I love that. It was a feminist thing. She said, "The heck with you."
Well, and on the stand when he testified, maybe y'all didn't remember that he said, "Hey, it was a point of contention actually in our relationship that she said, I'm going to pay for my half."
Yeah. She was a Dutch treat gal.
Yeah.
Can I mention one last thing about this before we hopefully bring up the sound from the father today? I think the consensus of the three of us who have absolutely no power in this regard, the judge does, is that her office and she should not be disqualified. The thing that continues to trouble me, this Wade prosecutor has never prosecuted a felony in his prosecutorial career, and he's about to prosecute what I think one could say is the most serious felony in the most serious trial, maybe in the history of the United States, or at least the last, couple of decades. How do you, Callie and Marjorie, how do you feel about a guy with that limited experience, forget all the other personal crap, trying this case?
Well, I don't know, because it's very intense, and maybe it was just his time up at bat. I don't know how he ended up being the one to do it.
Well, he has done a lot of that. It's a defense
that's a whole
attorney,
different kettle of fish.
which is different. But he defended a lot of, according to we got this from Just Security, something that's a journal having to do with these kinds of things. Anyway, 2 decades of experience as a prosecutor, criminal defense lawyer, 75 criminal cases, state and federal court, including serious felony offenses. Again, that was as a defense attorney, but he also spent time as a prosecutor. He's not prosecuted a RICO case, which is what this is, a RICO case.
He's not prosecuted a felony of any kind.
He's not prosecuted a felony. He's defended in a felony. So I don't know how good a lawyer he is, but he basically wants women to make him sandwiches, so I'm not sure how much I think of him.
Yeah, no kidding.
After that declaration.
And wait a minute, and on top of that, Marjorie, he failed to sort of get that was her thing before they went out. So I'm like, huh? And they were friends before. How do you not know that?
I don't know. And then on one of the trips, he took his mother with him, too, which I thought was odd.
Well,
if you're in a torrid romance, I don't know. Do you take your mother with you?
But he's been fighting the ex-wife and all the rest of that stuff in more recent. So maybe that's why.
I don't know.
Safe choice.
Maybe that's why.
In any case, speaking of courtrooms, which is where apparently most of politics are going to be played out these days, on the 29th of January, we were told that the judge in New York in the fraud trial of Donald Trump, where fraud had already been determined, and the only issue was the penalties. And I think Letitia James, the Attorney General, this is a civil case, was seeking $370 million, I think.
Yeah.
January 29th came and went, and now, what is today? February 16th? We were told yesterday, not by the court, but by experts, alleged experts, that today the determination would come down from the court. Obviously, as of 12:15, it is not. But the most interesting part of this to me is in the E. Jean Carroll case, where $83 and $5 million, $88 million he owes, he's got to either come up with $88 million to appeal or a bond, which would probably cost him a quarter of that. If the verdict is somewhere in the $350 million range, he's either got to come up with that or another, let's say, $70 million. There was a guy on CNN last night who, what's the name of the book? He Cheats?
Something like
They
cheated America,
whatever,
or He Cheated America,
who
something
knows
like that.
who argues, I
Book on
think
Trump.
fairly persuasively, that Donald Trump doesn't have the money to appeal this verdict. What's your reaction to that, Kelly Crossley?
Well, he has a reputation for not paying people.
Yes,
and
he does.
I once asked a friend of mine who's, like all into all this stuff, I said, how does he get these top shelf lawyers in most cases? Sometimes he doesn't, as you know, when it's known that he doesn't pay. And he said to me, because other supporters and people pay for him. So maybe this is a situation where, friends will, pass the hat and do a GoFundMe or whatever, and so it won't come to that. I would think not, but that's a possibility.
It is.
He's up to $50 million in legal bills so far.
Well, but that can be paid out of campaign contributions. My understanding, getting to what Callie said, I don't think campaign funds, I don't believe, can be used to pay fines, which is what this would be. And it really would be wonderful justice, would it not be, if the guy who is so proud of his financial success can't appeal to really costly verdicts because he doesn't have the money to do it.
That's why I think somebody will pay for him, because I don't think he's going down like that.
Sadly, you may be, actually, even though it's a lot of money, you may be right.
Well, Jared Kushner's got a lot of money, but he seems to be kind of in a different place now.
He said he's not going back to D.C.
Ivanka and Jared.
Really?
Yeah, the other two sons are going to be could be in big financial trouble too, especially if they can't do business in New York, which may end up being the end of this mess.
Well, he's the son-in-law, remember, not the
Jared
son.
is the son-in-law.
Yeah,
That's right. He's got a lot of money in his own right.
Right.
I guess when that was part of the deal, that Ivanka and Jared, they had to check their bottom lines, and she had hundreds of millions and he had hundreds of millions, so I guess it worked out between the two of them quite well.
Can we rarely go in reverse, but this sound from the father of Fani Willis is so great from this morning's trial that it's worth playing. The first voice you're going to hear is one of the lawyers who's urging the disqualification, and then Fani Willis's father. And this is off what Marjorie said before, D.A. Willis saying, yeah, I paid Wade in cash because I got a lot of cash around the house because of the advice my father gave me. Here's the lawyer and the father.
When your daughter moved or left the house that she owned, did she say anything to you about having a large savings of cash?
Oh, no, no. See, maybe, excuse me, and Your Honor, I'm not trying to be racist, okay? But it's a black thing, okay? I was trained, and most black folks, they hide cash.
Was that one of the great lines?
Yes.
Most black folks, they hide cash,
Yes.
Kelly Crossley.
Yes.
Your reflection, please?
Well, my reflection is I don't have much to hide, but I would be on the cultural tip if I had some, believe me. And my great aunt used to hide it all over the place. So many books I've read where people have hidden this money in walls, under bricks, yeah, that's a common thing. He's not wrong there.
Yeah. I don't think it's just a black thing.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, when her father died, who was a police officer in my hometown, after he died, they went around and they just opened up, they were going to throw out the coffee in the coffee cans.
Yeah.
Every coffee can they opened. $40,000.
No.
Oh, my God.
Is that true?
Yeah.
And the father had never told his kid that there was cash? Oh, my God.
Well, and now this is fictional, but of course in The Bear, they found the money in the tomato.
That's right.
Correct.
That's right.
Yeah, but it is fictional, as you said, Kelly Crossley.
Well, I just wanted to bring that.
Okay, thank you for doing it. We're talking to Kelly Crossley.
Kelly, there was a very sad story about migrants living over in Cambridge, and they were in a place that has been described as being pretty filthy and not well kept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the old courthouse over there. I'm not sure if that's the courthouse where they had the asbestos problem on Thorndike Street.
I believe it.
I'm not sure.
What? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure,
actually.
but anyway, it's a Cambridge courthouse, and the thrust of the story was too about people having to leave, as many homeless people do, have to leave at the crack of dawn and not come back until much later in the day.
Yeah.
What'd you make of this piece?
Well, it was really sad and obviously concerning because people are trying to stay warm on the first part of this is just trying to stay warm. The other part of it is, when people don't have anything to do, not that they get in trouble, but other people perceive. It's just a lot. It's not a good situation for anybody. And also, then the shelter is trying to do its best in the condition that it's in to have some space for the people that they believe is the most critical time, which is at night. But yeah, it really brings home a part of this issue that we haven't talked about much, and which is What do they do in the daytime if they don't have anything? And it was pointed out that at least at the Melnia Cass Emergency Center, there are activities
Yes.
in the daytime or places for people to go. That makes a big difference.
Well, you know what the other point that it makes that we've discussed on the show only 1,000 times? I am still unclear. We've discussed this with the governor nonstop every time she's here, why the president, who has the power, he doesn't need congressional approval, is not expediting the work permit process that would
Yes.
allow a
Yes.
ton of these people. Virtually every migrant who is interviewed says, all I want to do is work.
Right.
I need a place to sleep. And by the way, I'll get out of the damn shelter.
Right.
If I get a job too, I can afford to rent maybe they can't afford to rent an apartment. So I hope when these stories, and to the credit of the governor, who was hesitant to criticize the Biden administration for their slowness here in the beginning, a bunch of Democratic governors are finally doing the right thing and saying, we need cash and we need expedited work permits so that these people can live decent lives while they're in limbo.
Is there a political angle to this that we're not seeing?
I just don't know. And by the way, we should say in defense of Healy, she did a wonderful thing right a day or two before she was on last month. Within the power that she has, which I can't explain terribly well, she expedited the work permit process for those who are currently entitled to a work permit, not the larger group. So she's done as much as she can, and now it's in the hands of the Biden administration.
You know, I just wanted to mention a couple of blocks from here is the Women's Lunch Place,
Sure.
Yes.
which is a place, you know it, Callie, that started because there was no place to go for women who were homeless during the day, and they opened up this place where you can have lunch. That's why it's the Women's Lunch Place, with real tablecloths and little flowers on the tables and showers and food and clothing exchanges, and it gives people a place to go to during the day. So it's a wonderful, wonderful organization.
But it addresses your point about what happens in the daytime.
Yeah. You're stuck.
Right.
I mean, the story talked about people kind of wandering around supermarkets to get someplace that was warm, not the frozen
Just
food
for a few
section.
minutes.
Going into
a
and
store.
people being not happy that they were there, etc.
And if you think about the last few days with this wind on top of everything else, I mean, it really is dangerous. And people have children too, so that is another layer to that as well.
Okay, well, let's get back to first world problems here.
It's exactly what I was going to say. I can't believe you just
People very upset.
Exactly what I was going to
about
say.
You're going to get ads now on Amazon Prime unless you want to pay $2.99 extra a month. Are you outraged, Callie, or are you trying to control yourself here?
These people have really gotten out of hand. They really have.
Because you're paying already, right?
You're already paying, as the lawsuit states, which is the heart of this story, is that there is now a lawsuit brought by Wilbert Napoleon, a resident of Eastvale, California. He's a Prime member. So according to his plan, it states, if I pay X amount of money every month, I have ad-free viewing. Now Amazon is saying, well, if you want to guarantee it, you got to pay $2.99 a month. And as his lawsuit points out, and I guess it'll be a class action suit, you've already paid for it. So the lawyer's saying, it's supposed to be free to you because you paid for it. And so to add this is fraud, essentially. That's what they're saying. They say deception. They say deception.
We had Eric Deggans on the other day, who we both love, the NPR TV critic.
Yeah.
And a piece he wrote recently is how to manage streaming accounts. How do you manage streaming? Most people don't manage them.
I don't.
They subscribe and then they're screwed.
I'm taken advantage of on a daily basis.
How? Because you're disorganized. But I'm really organized and I'm taken advantage of too.
He gives a primer. He gives a primer explaining. Yeah, it's worth looking up because he goes right through every service explaining how you should handle it and how you can get by the ads or quit your streaming,
But here's
etc.
the key question. If you subscribe, as I assume you do, like most of us do, Kelly, to a particular streaming service only to watch one particular series, do you ever have it in you to remember to cancel the damn thing?
No, that's why you're supposed to. That's why what's that app, Rocket something? That's
Rocket,
Rocket,
yeah, trying to get people on it. And I said I was going to sign up for it. Here's another layer of that has affected my family. We got into a lot of streaming services, of course, in COVID, because we like to group watch.
Right.
And so now, one of us would do this streaming service, another would do this streaming service, but we had a family account, and now they're like, well, if it's not you, you can't use the thing, and you're sharing accounts, and we're not sharing. We bought we thought we bought a package that each of us could use. So we haven't untangled that, which means, and every Sunday when we have our call, we say, we need to deal with this, and then we don't. So here we are.
Rocket Money is the name of the app, by the way. Rocket
It's supposed
Money.
to tell you all the things
Gives
you're paying
yeah.
for you
Right.
don't realize you're paying for.
Exactly.
When you get your bills every month and you look at these charges and you don't know what they're for.
Yeah.
And I bet you, until Wilbert Napoleon paid attention, I'm giving him big credit. People didn't even realize they were paying $2.99 a month extra.
So I would suggest people go either to Rocket Money or WilbertNapoleon.com.
Yeah, why do they
Okay.
name him Wilbert? That wasn't very nice.
His
of
parents?
It's
his
I
parents'
liked it.
name.
Yeah,
I
Wilbert?
actually-
Oh, my
Wilbert
goodness.
Napoleon.
No, it's
What
awful.
are you doing this weekend, Kelly Crossley?
We're doing an encore for Black History Month of two of our favorite segments. One is about the Battle of Versailles, which was a fashion smackdown in 1973 between America and France. And America won because of the stunning black models. And then we're taking another listen to our Imani Perry interview. She just won the MacArthur Genius Award.
Yeah.
And in our series, The Genius Next Door. So we're encoring that.
Fabulous. We'll be listening. Kelly Crossley, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Kelly Crossley, thank you very much.
She's stranded at our
She's
studio
stranded.
in Brighton.
I know.
'cause Uber
I'm not
scooter-
really happy about that.
Apparently not.
Okay, we've been speaking with Callie Crossley,
Take care,
host of
Callie.
Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here on 89.7 GBH at 6 o'clock. You can also hear Callie's commentaries Mondays on GBH's Morning Edition. And she's also, Callie is, that is, a host for GBH's The Culture Show. You can hear her today from 2 to 3 when they're doing the Culture Show of the Week in the group. 2 o'clock, 89.7 GBH. Okay, after a quick break, another force behind the Culture Show, the force behind the Culture Show, that would be GBH Executive Arts Editor and Culture Show host Jared Bowen. He's just back from a Broadway bender in the Big Apple. He'll join us to talk about what he liked and didn't like in the quirky new AI art project that's taking over at the Whitney Museum in Brooklyn. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
Coal jobs have been declining for generations. Now, in the town of Kaiser, West Virginia, there's a different energy source on the horizon.
Energy is huge in this town, and without it, we wouldn't have very much.
I'm Ari Shapiro. What happens when a wind farm comes to a coal town? On All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Showcase Cinemas. On February 18th, you can see a screening of Selma in partnership with the Museum of African American History. Tickets available at showcasecinemas.com. And The Huntington, presenting John Proctor is the villain. A group of young women begins to discover their power and agency through a re-examination of the Crucible. Now through March 10th at the Huntington Calderwood Pavilion. huntingtontheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. We're still waiting for the verdict, not the verdict, the fine decision by the judge in the fraud trial involving Donald Trump in Manhattan. CNN says it's still likely to come today.
What are they doing?
How the hell do I know, Marjorie? So in
It's
any
really
case,
annoying.
youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. That's where we're streaming. February 27th at the library. It is the Attorney General for Ask the Attorney General from 11 to 12, and the Governor, Maura Healey, from 12 to 1. We're joined now by the jet-setting Jared Bowen, GBH News Executive Arts Editor and host of The Culture Show that airs daily at 2 o'clock right here on 89.7. Hey, Jared.
It's fun to be here.
Hey,
Nice
Jared
to see you.
Bowen, thank you very, very much for joining us. So you were down at the Whitney Museum. It's such a cool
It
museum
was.
with the portraits outside. It's in a great section of New York and everything. And they had this, I know you're not wild about all this AI stuff, but tell us about what the Whitney's doing with AI.
Yeah, so they have a new exhibition, and it's all about basically the
the precursor to AI, but I guess in a way it's AI. And I really appreciated this, even though I'm not necessarily always on board with the use of artificial intelligence in creating art. At least this showed us the building blocks of how we got here. And it's because there was a man named Harold Cohen. He was a British painter. And from the 1970s, basically through the rest of his career until he died, I think it was in the 2000s, he figured out ways to create software that would then tell a machine how to draw and how to create. And so he would literally have a big table with a machine. This is actually in the Whitney, although it wasn't working the day that I was there, so you didn't actually get to see it create. But tell the machine how to create landscapes, how to create figures, and then he would go in and do the coloring. And over the decades, as he continued to work with this technology, it would develop, and it could create more and more imagery with what he was producing. So again, I thought this was interesting just for the building blocks of how we got to this moment. I thought that the paintings themselves, right, drawings, paintings, were interesting. They didn't wow me. They felt kind of flat too. I think when you understand that this was rendered largely by a machine, although again,
Well, it's a machine-human
right,
collaboration,
and
right?
he brought his hand to it with the color. It just didn't speak to me as much. But yeah, I thought it was interesting to, again, as I say, to understand how this all came to be.
Don't we suppose, Jamie, don't we have something? Oh, there is one. Well, that's a big nothing.
I like that.
That's okay. What do you think about that out there? What do you think of this art?
Well,
Anybody?
So this one that we're looking at right now, and if you're watching it on YouTube,
that's actually pretty good.
But this was kind of inspired by Cezanne, who did a whole series of bathers. These were a bunch of paintings he did.
You share that, or
I've always every night I cry a little bit.
Well,
about that.
I'm crying. It's sad. But it appears that any day now we could have balloon animals or a variation on that on the moon. Is that right?
Yeah. So this is interesting. This is going to be the first authorized art on the moon,
Wow.
and there are these mini sculptures by Jeff Koons, whom we've talked about before. He creates the balloon dog. I know that you have a problem with, but how is a balloon animal dog art selling for millions and millions of dollars?
Yeah.
But it does when it's manufactured
yeah.
by Jeff Koons.
Yeah.
But he has created a relationship with NASA and others. So there's supposed to be a SpaceX rocket that will carry 125 of his miniature moons to the moon.
Can you explain
Why would we want
to me?
to do that? Why would we want to do that? We've got so much space junk floating around. Well, it's money. Okay.
It's money.
We've got so much space junk. We're like polluting outer space now. If we haven't done enough damage to Earth, and now we have to Jeff Koons, great artist, but
he's not a great. What are you talking about?
Well, lots of people.
He got 91 million for. What did he get 91 million for? Like a year or two ago.
I'm not sure which
probably
one
a balloon
that was.
Squirrel or something.
Okay.
It was his silver bunny sculpture.
Exactly.
Yes, sculpture.
Really?
So why does NASA want to do this?
I don't know. And I was reading this and I had the same question. And I thought, if we're going to have the first authorized art on the moon.
Yeah, do we want it to be Jeff Koons and his...
Right, do we? Do you don't? You
No,
don't,
I don't.
Jim.
No.
I
Leave
don't
the moon
necessarily
alone.
either.
Yeah.
And how do we as the Americans get to decide what the first piece of art should be? And should it
Great
be a piece of
point.
contemporary art or it should be something else that's existing? None of this really made sense to me, and I don't think that there's been a conversation about it. This should have been some sort of global conversation, I think. But no, instead, he gets to own this. He gets to market it. You asked this question, what is this all about? Well, this
Money.
is very much
Yeah.
about money because this changes the sphere of his reputation.
Before we get to what you saw in New York City, are you both amazed? I don't know how many balloon animals you've ever seen. The guys, mostly guys, who make
Well, they
balloon
can't be
animals for parties,
Yeah.
they never break the balloon. Have you noticed that, by
They
the way?
don't. But I don't
That is
understand
very
how
rarely they break a
balloon
balloon.
animals can even work on the moon.
Well, they're
because of
not. I was exaggerating.
They're not balloon
He does
animals.
balloon animals. These are not balloon animals.
Okay, what
They're
are
going to
they?
the
Before we
moon.
move on, what are these things going to look like?
They're little moons.
They're
That's
little
what-
moons,
That's
yeah.
moons on the
Moons,
moon.
yeah.
It's very meta.
It is.
But I also think
Okay.
about how much stuff are we just launching into
Exactly.
as you say, launching into space and then just dumping on the moon.
I know. I mean,
It's
you
very
see
strange.
You see these pictures of all these things like floating around. The space junk, that's what they call it. And we're doing our part to make the space junk worse. Okay, let's move on to something. This is one of the most devastating movies I ever saw. Was The Days of Wine and Roses, about this alcoholic couple battling, trying to stop drinking. But it's become a musical.
Before you say that, by the way, it was made, I don't know, 50 or 60 years ago. It was Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick. I don't
Yes.
know why or how. I saw it about 5 years ago. it is maybe the single saddest, most painful about alcoholism movie I've ever seen in my life. And when I think about it, and then they made it into a musical, I don't.
With a child
Well, go ahead.
involved.
But it really, really works.
Is it? Does it?
Yeah, it is so incredibly moving. So, first of all, it was a 1958 teleplay, and then it was
58?
adapted into that 1962 film
is that when
with
the
Jack
movie was?
Lemmon and Lee
62?
Remick. And it was written originally as a piece that would begin to deal with alcoholism through the prism of Alcoholics Anonymous and the notions of sobriety that began to develop then. I think, obviously, we see this alcoholism as a disease in a very different light here in 2024. However, they set this musical in the 1950s in New York. And we first meet this character. He is brash, and he's kind of straight out of Mad Men, in that he is somebody who uses alcohol just as these depictions of that time give us, as this is what you did in society, this is how you got ahead, this was just part of who you are. Well, he brings it home, and he doesn't bring it home. He first meets this woman, and he wants...
Who doesn't drink, right?
Who
Am I right?
doesn't,
That's
no.
what I thought,
And
yeah.
all.
Right.
This is the most heartbreaking scene, because you know where this is going. So he flirts with her, he takes her out on a date, they become entwined in a relationship, but he wants to have fun. What does fun mean? Fun means drinking. She resists, she doesn't drink, she never has, she enjoys life without it. But then he coaxes her into having her first drink. And these two characters are played by Brian Darcy James and Kelly O'Hara, who is sublime and magnificent. And you see more than anything how she falls into alcoholism and what it does to her. And yes, they do have a child. She has a father who is witnessing all of this. He's witnessing the disintegration of his daughter through this man who has come into her life. It's not completely sung through, but largely sung through. Kelly O'Hara's voice is so beautiful. She and Brian Darcy James together are gorgeous and just make this story so impactful. It's really, really tight. It's playing at Studio 54. It's presented by the Roundabout Theater Company. And then it's funny that you mentioned that she didn't drink at the beginning, because that scene, I don't think I'll ever forget it, because you're rooting for her to be able to withstand it, and of course she doesn't.
And by the way, if you can't get to the musical, we're going to play a little sound from it in a minute. I don't even know how to access the movie. I'm sure it's available some streaming. It is a classic. Again, horribly painful, but a classic. Here's a clip from The Days of Wine and Roses, the musical, as Jared said, at Studio 54 in New York.
Who needs dry land? Who wants wet sand? All I want is you.
Well, it doesn't really do much for me, but
I will
I know.
concede that's not the best recording, but trust me, you want to see this show, you want to see this pair together, and also this is something that they had been working on, she in particular, for the better part of 20 years. This was really written for her, so it's just an amazing chance to see her in what might be one of her career-defining roles.
Before we get to the next play you saw in New York, are people going to the theater?
They are going to the theater. It's a weird time to go to New York right now, because there aren't as many shows on, so it's actually a good time, because I always say that I have to go to the place I hate most in the world,
Tix?
Times Square. No, Times Square.
Oh.
To go to the TKTS booth is fun and supports the theaters, of course, but you have to crawl through all those people. It's just horrible to get to something that I love so much, which is theater.
It is like an anthill, isn't it?
It's a human car wash.
Yes,
You're just
people
tossing.
Was the naked cowboy singing, or you didn't see him?
Is he still there?
Oh, yes, he is still there. Well, he was a year ago, anyway.
I haven't seen the naked
Neither
cowboy or the
have I.
naked cowgirl in quite some time.
Yeah.
Is there a naked cowgirl?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. Well, this is another thing off a movie. Only a matter of this. Well,
Back
not
to the
as the
Future.
song. Back to the Future.
Back to the
What's the
Future.
deal with that? Another musical,
The
right?
musical, yeah. So this started in London and came here, and I will say that this is something I wouldn't ordinarily pick, because I'm not necessarily a big fan of movies being made into musicals. However, these two prove the exception. So this premiered in England, now it's here, and it's everything you know and you love about the Back to the Future movie, which of course is about Marty McFly, who has this relationship with Doc Brown, and he goes back to the future, goes back into the 1950s, and has to kind of correct course without destroying his family and his own existence. And a lot of the people who were involved with the original film were involved with this, so it's the same costumes, it's the same look, a lot of the same lines, but this is really fun. Roger Bart plays Doc Brown, and Casey Likes, in one of his first major roles, plays Marty McFly, and they have this extraordinary chemistry, and it's just so much fun to watch them. And then on top of that, you have this sort of flying car as you watch
The
it.
DeLorean.
The DeLorean as
Yeah.
it goes
Right.
back in time.
We have sound from that too.
Yes, we do.
from
Here it is.
Only a Matter of Time from.
Very
fun.
rousing.
You know what? I mean, you do this all the time for a living, but the times I've been to Broadway, it is incredible to me. These people can do everything. They can sing, they can dance, they can act, they can cry. I mean, compared to what people do in these films where they can take the the shot over and over and over again, and most of them are kind of just sitting there. I mean, these people. And they don't make nearly as much money.
Oh, nothing
close
to what they make on film and screen. And to your point, they also can improvise. I had the great seat. So this is what sealed the chemistry that those two actors had. Is as I saw it. If you're in the theater and you're close enough, you often see that actors are projecting, so they spit a lot. So at one point, Casey Likes spit on Roger Bart. We all saw it. We saw how then Roger Bart kind of carried the bit. It was by no means intentional. He could never have done that. And then we saw the two kind of dance around that throughout that scene, and it was just hilarious to watch. But they were also doing it respectful that they were still in a show, they were still an audience. But it was hilarious actually, and it was just so nice to see that they have this camaraderie. And that's only, of course, something you can do in theater, and you don't get rattled by it. You don't get your take ruined, and you stop everything down and start filming again. This is what actors in the theater do.
It's amazing.
So the three things you saw, the one I want to see is Oh Mary, about Mary Todd Lincoln, in which, from what I understand, she performs a sex act on Abe. Is that true?
That is
I
not
thought
true.
Under the Desk she did a no.
Not
okay.
Mary.
No,
Let's
she
take
plays
that back.
a bubble-headed
Tell us about-
alcoholic. I don't want to know if I want to see
Jim.
Mary Todd Lincoln as a bubble-headed alcoholic. Jim, I can't believe you just said that.
I can't believe that. Is this live, the show? I
It's
can't
live.
remember.
It's too
That's
late
too
now.
bad.
But I mean, really?
Okay,
this
Mary.
poor woman who had this very difficult,
Okay.
lost almost all her children.
He didn't like this.
No, you should both just stop talking to me. I can carry the show for a little bit. Get your tickets immediately.
Is that great?
This show is hilarious. It is so funny, and I think
It's funny?
It's going. Yeah, it's really fun. I'll walk you through why it's funny.
All right.
You know what's amazing, Margie, in these shows? They can sing, they can dance, they can talk,
Okay.
they can
You know-
spit, they can do everything.
Okay, Jim.
But go ahead, I'm
They
sorry.
can spit, that's right. So this is called Oh Mary. It's playing off-Broadway at the Lucille Lortel Theater, and it is a play about Mary Todd Lincoln, and she's rattling around the White House, and she's quite frustrated. She's drinking a lot of alcohol, drinking a lot of paint thinner, because she just doesn't like her...
Paint thinner?
Paint thinner. She doesn't like her situation. She's a struggling former cabaret star who just wants to get back on the stage, but Abraham is not paying very much attention to her because he's waging this war against the South. She has to keep asking the South of what. She just doesn't understand why he's so preoccupied.
Pretty funny to begin with.
This is written and Mary is performed by Cole Escola, who people might know from Amy Sedaris and YouTube skits, and they are unbelievably hilarious. This is such a tight cast in this little theater. I walked out, no exaggeration, my voice was hoarse for having laughed an hour and 20 minutes. It's just so funny. Some of it is outrageous, and they're so earnest in their comedy. It's not about trying to get the laughs, but the scenarios are just so funny. The intention is so funny and serious in how they play it. There are rumors about Abraham Lincoln's sexuality. Those come to the fore in this play. And so, by the way, I'm trying not to give too much away, but to try to satisfy Mary Todd Lincoln's theater cravings, he hires a tutor, a stage tutor by the name of John Wilkes Booth to help her along.
Can I read from the New York Times, please, if I may? What? That's a fairly good newspaper, the New York Times.
Yes.
Yes? Okay,
Yeah.
well, let me read from it. Here's the review written by Eric Piepenberg, whatever. It's hard to pin down, this is pretty good. It's hard to pin down the moment No Mary, a comedy about Mary Todd Lincoln that will send Lincoln scholars and purists into apoplexy. It could be when the First Lady disastrously auditions for a role in Our American Cousin, the play at which John Wilkes Booth would later shoot her husband on April 14th, 1865, or when the deeply closeted Lincoln is orally pleasured at his desk. I think you missed it.
Did you miss that scene,
Apparently
Jared?
you did.
I didn't miss it. I just didn't want to talk about it.
Is that really true? That is really sad. It is what it
Okay.
is. I mean,
It
that's
is what it is. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
great. Thank
It's
you, Jamie.
Really,
for your
really,
help
really
there.
funny. I think
Jared's changing the topic. Go subject. Go ahead.
So I thought Abraham Lincoln was sleeping with all his law partners because they couldn't afford a second bed.
No, that was before he came to Washington. He did sleep with his law partners.
I wasn't there. I guess.
No, they
Yeah.
say that's what they. But
They shared a
that
bed
was
'cause
not
they
an
didn't-
Abraham
they didn't
Lincoln
have
thing. That
enough
was an
money.
everybody thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have enough money.
Yeah.
So I didn't know he was deeply closeted. I don't know.
Well, I didn't.
Was he deeply closeted?
I think that's what they say.
We should call Doris Kearns Goodwin. That's what we should
She
do.
would know,
She knows
yeah.
everything about Lincoln.
Yeah, we can ask her. I mean, she does live here in Boston.
And we can ask her if
Jared's very nervous.
Mary
at this
Todd was a
stage.
bubblehead
I know.
alcoholic.
I'm just trying to move us off.
No,
of
let's
this.
talk
let's
about
move
this a
on.
little
But
bit
the
more.
other thing I'll say about
Yeah.
this is it's an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh,
This is the
Yes.
first time, and I thought, I don't want it to be over now. It can't be over now. I wanted more. It was horrible that it ended. That's
yeah,
how
but
good it
as
is.
we know,
Yeah.
anything that can be under 90 minutes is heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, and generally, do we agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do agree.
Let's go to Wellesley. Before you go here, we weren't able to get to this last time. This actually
Yes.
sounds really quite fast. Is this free, by the way? Let's start with the important part.
I
No?
believe they are free.
I think it is free.
We'll
Okay.
double check that. But
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
So at the Davis Museum at Wellesley College, they have a retrospective of Lorraine O'Grady, and it's called Both And. And this it's the first major career survey, which is unbelievable because Lorraine O'Grady is 89 years old.
Wow.
She grew up here in Massachusetts and grew up in Roxbury and was a rock star basically at everything she did. She went to Wellesley. She got amazing scholarships, amazing grades. She went on to work as a writer and operational services in the State Department, aced that. She went on to New York to become a rock critic, aced that. Then I love these stories too, just like Julia Child and others who really find themselves in their 40s or sometimes even 50s, but in her 40s, Lorraine O'Grady entered the art world, did not ace that, because here was a black woman who was trying to find her way into mainstream art, the art community in New York. And it was a very racist time. They didn't necessarily want her. So she found her way into that through her style, which was adopting a character like Mademoiselle Bourgeois Noir. And she was somebody who would dress up with her gloves and formal clothing, and she would interrupt arts events, but they would be captured in photographs. So she was somebody who worked forever and still continues to work as a conceptual artist, commenting on society, disrupting society, and turning it around so that society can really see itself. So you see the photographs from her many series that she did over the years and the many ways in which she had conversations with the art world or condemnation of the art world in this show. And it's really, really, really exceptional, strong work, and you come away with this immense appreciation for what she devoted her career to doing.
Yeah, I'm about to do what I hate when Marjorie does this, so I shouldn't do it. There is a photograph in the review of her in New York City at one of these salons or whatever that is such an incredibly powerful, beautiful action. I mean, they're all sitting there. Some are looking at the camera. Some are looking at each other. Again, I shouldn't have done this on a radio show without it. Isn't that a beautiful photo? You're looking at it now. Isn't that a beautiful?
I don't know if anybody
well, I don't
can
know.
see it.
Actually, can you grab that, or can we not? Well, sort of, not really.
Well, you can sort of see it.
Sort of.
They're in
you
a-
can.
Oh,
thank
my
you.
goodness.
That's great.
Isn't that a great picture?
It's so full of life. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really
because
just
it's
so beautiful.
And she'll be at pains to point out that this was after she had done that, because obviously there is full of life because they're looking back on the event that she had just basically infiltrated, but it wasn't comfortable necessarily to do that. There's a whole other series she did too called Art Is, where she carried these picture frames during the African American Day Parade in Harlem, putting people in frames. You are art. Your life is art. There you're filled with joy and smiling faces too. She has, I keep putting in the past tense, but she's still working. And in fact, the latest series, she's kind of imagined herself as Joan of Arc, including commissioning her own suit of armor. So everybody should visit this show. It's, again, really captivating.
So we're glad you came back from your boondoggle in New York City. What are you doing on the culture show this afternoon?
So we'll be talking about the Super Bowl. We'll be talking about everything that surfaced out of that, including Beyonce creating a lot of controversy with her country music that people don't want to be hearing. And we'll also talk about this very, very strange story, an artist auctioning off his art, which is on his body in the form of tattoos and bidders bidding on his skin.
Oh my God, that is
Wait a minute.
disgusting.
So from the
How
sublime
can you
to
bid
the
on
ridiculous.
someone's skin? Is it?
You can.
Okay, but is this after he's dead or
Yes,
something?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that is thoroughly
Yeah.
disgusting.
So maybe not unlike Jeff Koons sending stuff to the moon. There are things that are happening in the art world that
Hold
don't always
on.
give it such a good name.
I'm going to have to tune in at 2 o'clock to hear the details, but I
Yeah.
mean, people are paying for this?
Apparently.
They want to have someone's shoulder tattoo in their house in a frame?
We'll give you the details.
You know, can I tell you
Do you have
something?
to
I hate
freeze it
when
so it
people-
doesn't like...
I don't know. That's a good. I don't know the conservation tips for buying skin.
You know,
Oh,
Marjorie
God.
knows this, and Jamie, I hate when people give us advice about our show. My attitude is stay out of it. We're doing fine. But I'm going to give you some
I like
advice
a lot of
about
advice.
the culture show. No,
Yeah.
more balloon animals. I mean, the show's really good. There's been such a dearth of balloon animal talk, and I think the people on the street are pretty upset about it.
We'll try to bring on a balloon dog manufacturing expert next week.
That'd be great.
Would you come into the show
That'd
if
be
we
huge.
do that?
Are you kidding me? I'd be there in a flash, my
Right.
friend.
Okay.
Jared Bowen, Culture Show, 2 o'clock today. Great to see you, Jared.
Yeah, that's right. You can tune in at 2 and find out about how you can bid on people's tattoos off their skin after they are no longer with us. Oh, my God. Tell you,
Gross.
Jared,
Horrible.
unbelievable. We're speaking with Jared Cohen. We're speaking with Jared Cohen, GBH Executive
Bowen.
Arts Editor.
Bowen. I'm Bowen.
What did I say?
I think you said Cohen.
Did I say Cohen? Oh, my goodness. No, you're not Jared Cohen. You are Jared Bowen, GBH News Executive Arts Editor and host of The Culture Show, which airs daily at 2 o'clock right here on 88.9.7. Thank you very much, Jared Bowen.
A $95 billion foreign aid bill aimed at Ukraine was passed by the U.S. Senate, but seems dead on arrival in the House. I'm Adam Riley. This week on Talking Politics, we'll speak with Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss about the impasse and its consequences, plus the complicated Massachusetts effort to legalize natural psychedelics to treat anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Join me for Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Company. This new production of Stephen Sondheim and George Firth's musical comedy comes to Boston this April. More at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, Wednesday, April 3rd, in person and online. A day of inspiration, skill building, and networking, featuring Trevor Noah, Gloria Steinem, and Padma Lakshmi. InclusiveLeadership.com.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. The chair of the board of the library is taking pictures of our next guest. I have no idea what's going on there. Maybe she'll explain it to us. We are live. That's Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News, February 27th, which would be a Tuesday when we're at the library, 11 to 12, an hour of Andrea Campbell, Ask the Attorney General, and following the Attorney General will be 12 to 1, noon to 1, Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. That's both live at the library, Tuesday, February 27th. So Boston Magazine has called our next guest Boston's Great Connector. Other corners of the internet have used phrases like iconic cultural chance catalyst, DEI pioneer, includer. Of course, we're talking about Colette Phillips, president and CEO of Colette Phillips Communication, founder and president of the GK Fund and Get Connected with a K. One thing to add to her list, author. She's out now with really a fabulous new book. It's called The Includers, The 7 Traits of Culturally Savvy Anti-Racist Leaders, How White Allies Can Be Real Advocates in Their Workplaces and Communities. Colette, congratulations. Great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you
glad to see
very much for coming in. Congratulations on the new book. Before we get to what you were doing in this new book, this is why you read people's books, because you learn so much about them. I didn't know you came here at 17 years old.
Nor did I.
And I'm going to mispronounce Antigua, because I've heard it pronounced so many different ways. I once got there, I thought it was paradise on earth, but you left there at 17 to come here. So tell us how that happened.
Well, I came here to go to Emerson College. My older brother was going to school in New York, and I figured he didn't want to be responsible for his little sister. And so he told my parents, I think Boston is a nice place for her. It's very British. And since Antigua is a former British colony, he says, I think she'd fit in there. So came to Boston.
And still here.
And I'm still here.
Okay.
And before we talk about how the genesis of the book, you tell a brief story at the beginning of the book about how you got into the business. A lunch with some guy from Adweek. Share that story, Colette Phillips.
Yes, I had lunch with a guy named Ray Barron, who was an oldie, goldie guy who had been in advertising and was a columnist for Adweek. And I sat with him, because he had been in the business for a long time, and I said to him I was thinking about starting a public relations and marketing company. And he looked at me and he said, "Darling, I don't think you want to do that." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Before you do this, you should talk to Kendall Nash, who is the owner of, at the time, the only black radio station in Boston, WILD."
WILD, right.
He said, "And he will tell you how difficult it is for a black person to get business from the business community." And I didn't think he was telling me that to be, like unintentionally wicked or evil or anything. He wanted to spare me the frustrations. And so I did talk to Kendall, and he did tell me how difficult it was. And I decided I was still going to do this because I came from an entrepreneurial family. And, I feel like if you really have a vision and you have a passion, you can't allow obstacles to prevent you from going after the vision.
And you know what a host is supposed to say at that point? And the rest is history.
Yeah, but Boston has changed in many ways. We obviously have a long way to go. But you talk about a time when the vault was not only just a bunch of white men. I think they were mostly all Protestant white men that went to Episcopal churches. And you really, if you were
explain what the vault is for those who
I'm
don't
going to
remember.
ask Colette to explain.
Yeah.
And when you couldn't go to Charlestown, you couldn't go to the North End, you couldn't go to South Boston, you couldn't go to whole sections or East Boston if you were black.
That's
so
right.
this was a really, and of course the busing stuff was all going on. So tell us about the vault.
Well, the vault was made up of all the guys the white male Protestant men who were heads of banks and institutions like Blue Cross Blue Shield and other, like Bank of Boston.
Yep.
You had John Hancock Insurance Company, Filene's, and Jordan Marsh at the time. And these guys literally met in the bank vault.
Thus the name.
And
Very secret.
And these were the guys who sort of made decisions about Boston. Boston was kind of very secretive. And so they were the vault. They were the sort of the leaders, the business leaders at the time who whispered in the ears of the mayor, the governor, they sort of told them what they needed to do.
Why'd you write the book there, Colette Phillips? What was the point?
I wrote the book because I felt we were at a seminal point in not just Boston, but the country. And this was during COVID, and everybody who knows me knows that I am usually out 3-4 nights a week. And with COVID, I had nowhere to go. Where was after, 10 different Zooms, at the end of the day, you're saying, I need to do something productive. So I thought I would write this book. And I was going to use my experience because I felt that there was just this whole divisiveness that had gone on. We had just had the George Floyd incident. And there was a racial awakening in this country. And I thought, this is a seminal moment. And one of the things I was noticing is that with the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement, it was sort of saying, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion is only for women and people of color. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now you're creating another barrier to perpetuate biases against a certain group of people, white men. And if you're smart, if you think about who are the people who occupy the positions of power in government, in sports, in business, you name it, it's white male. So you cannot talk about inclusion and exclude the very people who have the power to make the change.
But the takeaway for me on that point, which is central to your book, it's more about pragmatism than it is principle. I'm not saying you're unprincipled, but it's not because you're worried that white men are going to be discriminated against, but they have the power. If you want inclusion, they have to be included in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think the path to diversity, equity, and inclusion has got to be radical anti-exclusion. We can't exclude anyone from the conversation.
The subtitle of your book, The Includers, The 7 Traits of Culturally Savvy Anti-Racist Leaders, the 7 C's. We don't have time for 7. Give us a couple that are central, Colette, and explain why they're so key.
I think character. Character is driven by integrity. Character means you are willing to stand in your integrity and do the right thing. It's something that is innate to every single person. Somebody who jumps in the way of a train and lay his body across a person he doesn't know. That is character.
Which actually happened.
Which actually happened
in New York City. Yep. A veteran, Vietnam veteran.
And the other is cultural intelligence. You are the father of 2 girls who are Asian American.
I am, correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
And so people need to get out of their comfort zone, because the natural instinct of human beings is that we all want to be with the people that look like us, that we are comfortable with. And life begins at the end of your comfort zone. You have to understand, if you're a business person doing business in a global environment, you can't walk in to talk to the people in India, in China, in the Middle East, and then walk in with a group of people who none of whom look like the people you're trying to do business with. It's just not smart. So cultural intelligence allows us to tap into, it's Anthony Bourdain, the best cultural intelligent person I could think about.
That's a great point.
And so I'm always looking to see, where is he going to be? He gets to know the people, sits with them, break bread with them, get to know their culture. That's cultural intelligence. And I would say perhaps one of the most important one is courage. Because it takes courage. You know, people say to me, so you're now promoting and advocating white guys. White guys get everything. You know, they don't. My attitude is, yes, they get everything, and because they are willing to do what they do and go out there, advocate for women, for people of color, that's courageous. They don't have to do it. They already have the power. Why do they need to care about diversity and equity? The fact that people like Bob Rivers, people like Ron O'Hanley, Eastern Bank,
who's involved in virtually everything in this
absolutely.
city.
He is the go-to guy, the go-to white guy when it comes to DE&I. So the fact that these people are doing that, to me, takes courage. Brian Monahan in 2015, this is long before Bank of America, long before we had George Floyd. He started a series of conversations with his employees of color, particularly his black employees, that he dubbed courageous conversations, because he wanted to know, how are they fitting into the culture of BOA? What can he be doing more to help move more people up the ladder?
But you know, Colette Phillips...
That's the white men that can jump, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I love that
Whites
phrase.
who can jump.
Yes, white men who can jump.
But you know,
yes.
Some would argue... I hate when
Some
people
would
do
argue.
that. I would argue. I hate when interviewers, when they do that...
You would
because
argue.
You're either writing this book at the worst time or the best time. This anti-DEI thing, from the Ackmans of the world over at Harvard to the Supreme Court of the United States, we've talked ad nauseum about how corporations that embrace DEI with a passion the day after the murder of George Floyd are quietly slinking away when the pressure is not there, then the higher education decision. So is it the best time? Well, obviously you're going to say the best time, not the worst time to write the book. Why is it the best time in this era of running away from DEI?
It's the best time because our country is becoming more and more culturally diverse. 85% of the new people entering the workforce are women, people of color, and immigrants. And therefore, it makes sense. You know, when people think of diversity, equity, and inclusion, they think of it sort of, it's not musical chairs. When the music stops, you're not in front of a chair, you fall out. It's the Thanksgiving table. And what do we do at a Thanksgiving table? We cook more food, we add more chairs, everybody gets a meal, everybody gets to sit and enjoy themselves. That's how we should view DE&I. I mean, I think the founding fathers of this country, even back then, even when black people were not considered fully human, they knew that there were people coming to this country from different places. And in their wisdom, they created the Latin term, e pluribus unum. Out of many, we are one people.
Yeah.
And we have to keep remembering that in America. This is what makes us different. We are, I consider us, as the example that the world can look at. Different people, different backgrounds, different religion, living together, coexisting peacefully.
So you're a lot more optimistic than I think sometimes I feel these days with all the things that are going on in the world. Where's that come from?
It comes from, I think, my parents. They instilled in me a faith that God will see you through, no matter what the circumstances are, a strong faith, and a belief in that people might say that Anne Frank was, you know, that people are really good at heart.
Yeah.
And that we have to believe in that glimmer of hope and possibility.
And you mentioned an entrepreneurial family. Tell us about that.
My father was a serial entrepreneur on the island of Antigua. He had multiple businesses going on, an insurance company, a winery, a liquor store, a grocery store. So it was in my blood to be an entrepreneur. And so my mother was one of the first women to go into the retail business, which was dominated by men, and primarily men from Portugal and the Middle East and Britain.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with two parents who were entrepreneurs. So no surprise that I end up becoming an entrepreneur, because that's what I saw.
Did you think you were going to go back to the island
Oh,
when you
I
left?
did go back. I went back to Antigua, and I worked as the press secretary to the Prime Minister.
I didn't know that.
I was like the Oprah of Antigua.
I can believe that.
I had a talk show called Let's Talk.
Wow.
And yes, this was in the 70s, late 70s, and then I came back to Boston to do my master's.
Okay.
And said to my parents, oh, I'm going to stay for 2 years. My 93-year-old mother, who I'm going to see today in Atlanta, says to me, you realize it's been longer than 32 years that you've been away. So Boston is my home.
That's the voice of Colette Phillips, a great new book, and it is a great new book. The Includers, the 7 Traits of Culturally Savvy Anti-Racist Leaders. You know what the problem is with you, Colette Phillips? Let me tell you. Marjorie and I talk about you from time to time.
That's right.
We do. Anybody who everybody respects and likes, there's something going on. No, I'm not kidding. Honestly, it is like I'm always searching when somebody talks to us about you. Yeah, what's the underside? What do we not know about you?
That's right.
Colette
Time for
Phillips,
true confessions
that would
here.
Make me
True
happier?
confession.
Come on.
Okay.
What's the worst thing you ever did?
The worst thing I ever did?
Come on.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, close to the worst thing.
I don't know.
That's my point exactly.
Yeah.
I try to be optimistic, helpful, and, you know, I don't believe in revenge.
I know you
The
don't.
best revenge is living well.
That's right.
Hey, Colette.
Hear that, Jim?
Well, don't talk to me about that. Thank you. We really had a great pleasure. We had two people on the show during the NAACP convention. Ricardo Pierre-Louis, who is Lewis from the founder and CEO of Privé Parking.
Yes.
And Rose Starum, also unbelievable, the Dorchester-based event firm Rosemark Production. One of the incredible, this is during the NAACP.
Yes.
Black entrepreneurs, and the commitment was made by the NAACP and the mayor. We're going to try to hire exclusively black entrepreneurs. They came pretty close. They did very well. Rose, who... an incredible story. Rose, who had done events for the President of the United States of America.
Yes. And Colette knows her, obviously. You know her.
Yeah, of course.
Had
never had a contract in Boston. They did great during the convention. They got great celebration for the quality of their work. We had them back.
Plus, she's such a dynamic personality.
She is.
She's a gorgeous-looking woman. Not that that should matter, but she is, and she's very charismatic and dynamic.
Well, Ricardo's incredible,
well, they both
too.
are. They both are.
But here's the end of the story that I think matters. That was when the NAACP was in control. A person of color mayor was calling shots too, obviously Michelle Wu. We had him back in the studio 2 months ago to say, okay, everybody at the NAACP convention said this is going to be a life-changing thing. It's not going to be just 1 week. It's going to be a life-changing. How's business in Boston? And while both of them said they were hopeful about a few things, Ricardo talked about a contract for a garage he was bidding for in the past that's gone to some publicly traded firm from California kind of thing. Not a lot of business had come their way. So where's the disconnect between what you're writing about in the best of times and what still isn't the best of times for many black vendors and entrepreneurs in Boston?
Well, I think it sometimes takes a while for things to shift. And I have to say that Mayor Wu is leading by example. She has actually made a goal of 25% of the procurement in the city of Boston, and so has the governor of the state. And I think when
women and people of color, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Contracts.
Contracts.
Yeah.
And to encourage people, you have to almost incentivize people. When you hit them in the pocketbook, they get religion real fast. And they understand that when you're coming to do business with the city or the state, you have to come with a diverse team. It's not being politically correct. I hear Ron DeSantis from Florida
we love him, by the
and
way.
Greg Abbott of Texas, talking about this wokeness as if there's something. So my question to them is, you have major Latinos constituents in your states. When you are running for office, do you ever prepare your literature in Spanish? Or you give it out in English to the Latino people? Well, if you do, because you want them to know what you're going to do and who you are, you have to put it in the language that is most comfortable for them. Is that wokeness or is that smart marketing? So the hypocrisy of these people to talk about, this is wokeness. It is smart.
Speaking of smart, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's all these women running the show now. I call it an estrogen surge. I mean, you got the governor, lieutenant governor, you got the attorney general,
you
got
all the constitutional officers except for Bill Galvin.
That's right, the auditor, Diana Zaglio. Yeah, and I think that's a big difference in how politicians look at look at what needs to be done. They look at the world. I think it's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
So, Colette Phillips, you never stop. You never stop. You're doing a wonderful thing. You're doing a wonderful thing on the 27th. Explain to people what you're doing and who you're doing it with.
We are bringing together the Asian and Black communities on the 27th to celebrate Black History Month and Lunar New Year. I felt that last year with the college admission with Ed Bloom sort of pitting Asians against Blacks. And the only people who win when there is divisiveness is the person causing the division.
Yeah.
And so I felt we needed to kind of heal our communities and to show our shared values, our solidarity. We have more in common than we have different. So we are having this event, State Street. Ron O'Hanley, one of our white male includers, is hosting this event for us. And we are going to honor 5 Black organizations, community organizations, and 5 Asian community organizations that are unsung heroes within each community. They're not organizations that are in the globe every day or every week or people really know, but they're doing good work, like May Do.
My Do was here
Who
last week
is-
with Irene Lee.
Yeah.
She runs Walloon Kung Fu and Tai Chi Academy. When I introduced her and Irene the other day, doing as much as social justice activists
Yes.
in this community as any 2 human beings. I think it's great what you're doing, not just for her, the other 9 organizations.
Great
It's
organization,
terrific. Well, yours
including,
is a great.
including Main Street Grove
Yep.
Hall, who actually took 200 women. The president of the chairman of the library and myself are on this. 200 black women, and honored us. And that was underwritten by the Kraft Family Foundation, Josh Kraft. And he
White
had
guy,
these,
by the way. Do you
White
know?
guy.
White guy, yeah.
And banner hanging on Blue Hill Ave, celebrating the contributions that black women have made to America over 400 years. So we had people like Harriet Tubman on the list. We had Melania Cass, Elma Lewis, Ruth Batson, both posthumous and people who are sort of living and doing good work.
By the way, since we've mentioned her twice, the chair of the board of the library, who is our host here, Priscilla Douglas. Priscilla, it's great to see you. Thank you very much.
So we are out of time here, but I just want to, real quick, you mentioned before the pandemic you're going out 3 or 4 nights a week. You back to going out 3 or 4 nights
I
a week? Wow, that's impressive. That's very impressive.
Monday night I was at the Beckmer event. Tuesday night I was at some event. Last night I was at Nancy Corman's home for the Eleanor Roosevelt Award, which I'm receiving with my mentor, Evelyn Murphy, on April 30th.
Congratulations.
So
wow.
By the way, I don't have any idea if you know who's hosting that event. Do you know?
You.
That would be me. Thank you very much.
A
Jesus,
white male
talk about dropping
includer.
the
A white
punchline.
man, yes, a white male
Hey,
includer.
Colette,
That's
in all
right.
seriousness, the book is spectacular. Congratulations.
Thank
We're
you.
thrilled to see you.
And
Thanks
thank
so
you for
much.
having
you're
me.
welcome.
I love being on this show.
Oh, well,
love
thank you.
having
You have to
you.
come back again. It's been such fun. And congratulations
I will.
again.
Thank
Colette
you
Phillips.
both.
We were speaking with communications maven and connector Colette Phillips, president and CEO of Colette Phillips Communications, and founder and president of the GK Fund and Get Connected. The book, The Includers, the 7 traits of culturally savvy, anti-racist leaders, how white allies can be real advocates in their workplaces and communities. Colette, thank you very, very
Great to
much.
see you, Colette Phillips.
After a quick break, a year or so ago, we had a restaurateur come on the show. First person to challenge Jim for the title of Most Underdressed for our live show. He's back again to complete the challenge. Steve Nookie Postal and his business partner, Lisa Shirazi, are expanding. Oops, I'm saying goodbye to Colette here. Sorry. Sorry. They're expanding their...
Coal jobs have been declining for generations. Now, in the town of Kaiser, West Virginia, there's a different energy source on the horizon.
Energy is huge in this town, and without it, we wouldn't have very much.
I'm Ari Shapiro. What happens when a wind farm comes to a coal town? On All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Boston Ballet, presenting Winter Experience, a program celebrating the evolution of dance, with 2 world premieres by Mikko Niisanen and Helen Pickett, opening February 22nd. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And Spectacle Management, presenting Sing and Swing, a Jazz at Lincoln Center production featuring Bria Schoenberg and Benny Benack III. Thursday, March 21st at 8 at Cary Hall in Lexington. Tickets at caryhalllexington.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. February 27th, which is a Tuesday, when we are here, Attorney General Andrea Campbell joins us 11 to 12. The Governor, Maura Healey, joins us from 12 to 1. 2 things before we introduce our guests. Paula, watching on YouTube, says, a new streamer, fun to watch, intelligent conversation. Well, actually, you should watch our show, too. And the question she asks, why are we all standing? Why are we standing, Marjorie?
So he gets to the pretzels
No,
faster.
that is not.
And the cookies faster.
That is not, okay.
We're standing because it helps your energy.
It's a higher energy kind of thing. We also promised you earlier when President Biden gave a speech we wanted to bring you just a little bit after the, I would say, likely execution of Navalny. Here's a little bit of what the President Joe Biden had to say.
He bravely stood up to the corruption, the violence, and all the bad things that the Putin government was doing. In response, Putin had him poisoned, he had him arrested, he had him prosecuted for fabricated crimes, he sentenced him to prison, he was held in isolation. Even all that didn't stop him from calling out Putin's lies.
And Marjorie, as we said a lot when we were talking to Charlie Sennett, the film made by CNN and HBO called Navalny is one of the most inspirational things you can ever see. You should check it out. So of all the things to love about the show, getting to hear Grammy-winning performers like Takash Quartet, that was in the 11 o'clock hour, talking with authors, governors, attorneys general, it really pales in comparison to when we get to hang out with people who bring us food.
That's
Would you
correct.
not agree?
Absolutely.
Like Steve, why does he go by Nookie Postal? We had this discussion last year. The guy behind Revival Cafe openings in Watertown and Lexington, plus a brand new restaurant, Mothership, that opened in Alewife a few weeks ago. Also here, a new face to us, along with Nookie. Liza Shirazi is a co-founder of Mothership and Revival Cafe. Together, they're also co-founders of their parent company, More Hospitality Group. Nookie and Liza, it's great to see you both. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. I think, Nookie, last year you were complaining a lot, so maybe you can keep complaining today.
Well,
keep
that's
why I like the guy.
He's good at that.
There's a lot to complain about.
Lots to complain about. But one thing I think you can't complain about, we talk a lot about restaurants having difficulty post-pandemic. Lots of places closed down, but you are expanding. So you can't complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, although I have closed a restaurant in that time.
Okay.
Yeah, Revival's doing very well. We're really happy with how it's going. But it's just a challenging landscape out there.
Yeah, but wait a second. I mean, you are expanding, and people have on the show for the most part talk about how they're. I don't mean literally marketing.
I think that
we offer
we
good
try to
food.
tune into the community, really,
Yeah.
and I think that we both have a high standard of quality that we kind of put out there what we really enjoy. And it tends to be what others enjoy too. And I think that we try to connect with each individual location to that community that we're serving.
Yeah. You had a little New Year's Eve celebration for little kids. I thought that was a great idea.
So fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was. It's a fake New Year's Eve. Basically, it's from 4 to 7. Or is that what it was? 4 to 7?
4 to 8.
4 to 8.
Ball drop was 7:30.
Yeah. Fake ball drop, 7:30. DJ. Parents in bed by 9 o'clock. That's the key.
I love
It's
that.
genius. Yeah.
That was a great idea.
Yeah, I've got 3 little kids. She's got 2 little kids.
So what was the menu for the New Year's Eve party?
We did a ton of past apps. We did chicken fingers for the kids, mac and cheese, Shirley Temple bar,
What a
so
great
many
idea.
desserts, and literally everybody. Staff loves it. Parents love it. It's great.
Yeah,
And what's Mothership? That's fairly new. Was that just the last couple of months?
Yeah,
in Alewife?
Mothership.
So what's that?
It's been in the works for about 6 years, but yeah, we just opened about 2 months ago.
And what's the deal with Mothership, Liza?
What's the deal with Mothership?
Yeah.
So Mothership is connected to our Alewife Revival there.
Same
and
building.
Same building,
Yeah.
same kitchen, one huge shared space now. We first started talking about it, I think, in 2018. First rendition of Mothership was built in 2020, and it never opened.
Never opened.
And why? All COVID related, or what was the deal?
We finished construction in May of 2020.
You know what? Margie said this before.
Devastating.
I forgot what I loved about you from last time you were here.
I love this.
The food was good because you were so aggravated. It's coming through. If you look at this guy, he exudes aggravation. Give us the thing you're most.
I was okay. Well, we were talking. I was like, last time I was here, I brought candy corn blondies, and we were talking about the RRF, how the government didn't fill the RRF.
And did you still get screwed? Did you?
Totally screwed. They gave us nothing. We met with Elizabeth Warren and all her people.
And why did that happen that way?
I think they sent all the money to the Ukraine or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
It's the wrong show to be saying that, my friend, but that's okay.
But it was only certain people that maybe shouldn't have gotten the money. I know there was a lot of
I think like
upsetness.
33% of the people got money and 66 got nothing.
Yeah, and sometimes it was big chains that got the money.
Yeah,
Who
and right
had
now
better
we're waiting
lawyers.
on our ERTC money from the IRS.
What's ERT?
It's
Employee retention credit.
Oh, to keep
that's the
people
thing they do all
employed
the ads
during
about,
COVID.
right.
Yeah.
So they have this program, and you sign up, and then they give you the money, but they just don't give you the money.
How many hours a day do you fume about this? Tell the truth.
I would say most of the day.
Okay, so can we talk food for a second?
Yeah,
First of
let's
all, I
talk food.
love weird pretzels. Tell us what we're eating here.
Yeah, these are from the Mothership menu, pretzel bites. They get
that was
cooked
really
to order,
good.
honey mustard, perfect amount of salt, crunchy but super soft inside.
That's a big
They are
thing. Super
fabulous.
soft
Yeah,
inside.
I like them really soft.
Me too.
Really, really soft, like almost doughy.
I'm
like
eating.
me.
I apologize.
Well, I'm eating too, because you brought them.
You know-
Go ahead.
Excuse me. No, I'm not eating anymore. You know, we talk a lot with people that, in the restaurant business that the life balance is hard to achieve with that business. And how do you do that? I mean, don't you have to work like 90 hours a week?
And you talk about, you guys are serious about this. It's not a rhetorical flourish kind of deal.
Yeah.
So-
It's hard. It's a really hard balance, and you just have to prioritize things. And it's kind of like, I've had these conversations before, and it's with your family. It's like a family. It's raising a family, and it's not work anymore. It's just part of your life, and it's what needs most attention right now. So you kind of go to the place that needs you more. Sometimes that's your family, and sometimes that's your business. But we really feel like it's important. We try to live it, and so that our staff does too. And we really try to push it onto our staff because it's so easy to burn out in the industry.
Yeah,
So
we're not trying
how
to
much
burn
luck
out.
do you have hiring and retaining? Because most of the restaurateurs with whom we speak, again, independents like you as opposed to big chains, have say both is hard. What's the deal with that?
I mean, I think we focus a lot on our employees and keeping them happy, and we offer benefits. We offer 401k. We offer gym memberships. I feel like we're a very empathetic workplace.
Do people stay?
People stay.
That's
retention-
unusual.
Retention is what?
Retention
401ks for
yeah.
restaurant workers and gyms. That's very unusual.
What were you about to say,
I was
Liza?
going to say hiring new staff is very challenging. If you need more staff members and finding people, I would say 1 out of 4 people show up for an interview these days.
Really?
But
Yeah.
retention is something that I think we do really well because I think we've made culture a really important aspect of our business. So people end up staying when they like it, unless they have a life change. They're moving out, they're going back to school. That's really when people are leaving.
So what else do you say? I mean, you brought brownies. I don't even like brownies. They're terrific. I just don't, but they're usually too sweet. These are great. Cookies, the pretzel bits, the whole thing. What else at the Revival Cafes? What else?
Revival today, Friday. Fried chicken's a huge thing we're doing.
Ooh.
Yeah, every Friday, fried chicken sandwich. Today is macumber turnips, and I made some spicy aioli thing and some situational. I don't remember what else is on there, but every Friday, fried chicken. And now we're open in Alewife basically from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
And the fried chicken's gluten-free. I just wanted
It
to
is?
Oh, excellent.
Well, wait
So
a
how-
second. Wait. I mean, that doesn't have an effect on taste. I mean,
You can totally. We use our dredge. We do rice flour and cornstarch.
and no decline in
No,
quality.
not at all.
Okay.
I think people are
You
getting
wouldn't know
better
it.
and better
You
and
wouldn't
better.
even
Wouldn't know,
know.
really?
We
Yeah.
don't even really tell people because like some people they say, oh, it's gluten free. I don't want
just
it.
said it.
Yeah, you
I
just
tell
said it.
people because I don't eat.
You don't? Oh well. Okay.
But don't you think people are getting better and better and better? I mean, pastries that you would think are
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
deadly gluten-free. I mean, I'm not gluten-free, but I've eaten a few pastries. It tastes pretty good to me.
And I say it because we try to be as accessible as possible, right? So we're trying to create a menu that there's something for everybody, and allergens are really, people's dietary preferences are really, pressing right now, and I think we're trying to accommodate as much as we can.
In terms of the cafes, just so clear, you opened something in January, did you not? Am I right about that?
Watertown
Watertown,
Revival.
and something more, 2 more coming in early 2024.
Yes.
Where? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Or are you down here? Okay.
No,
fine.
we're opening.
Where?
We anticipate opening next month, March, in Lexington,
And
then later in the summer on Fort Point on Necco Street.
do you call him Steve or Nookie? I still can't. I don't. I mean, what do you call him?
I call him Nookie.
You do.
Nookie's my professional name.
And I understand. I get that, but
But I have no idea why. I don't know where the name comes from, so it's not just
you've never said to him, "Why are you called?"
Of course I
Nookie?"
have.
And
You
what
won't
does he
tell
say? Is that true?
True.
Because you're so aggravated about other stuff. You
Yeah,
don't
I'm
want to talk
too
about
focused
it?
on the government.
How did you get together?
Yeah.
Just to clarify,
is
we
like
are we're
unbelievable.
business partners.
Right,
We're-
yeah.
We're not like
Yeah, but how did you get together business partner-wise?
They have
It
no
must have been
idea,
through your
apparently.
brother. It was through your brother. I did this pop-up a long time ago called Steinbones, which is Jewish barbecue.
What are you, like
Jewish
George
barbecue.
Santos's cousin, or what's that?
Anyway,
Okay, go ahead.
and we ended up doing Liza's brother Jesse, who's in the retail world, hooked us up, and we did the pop-up at Crema, and that's where we initially met. And then
What is Jewish barbecue?
it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Want to ask her, or you don't?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Jewish style, but not kosher.
It's not kosher.
Okay.
Yeah, no pork, but just like Southern barbecue, but no pork.
Okay.
It never really took off.
Oh, well.
Let's be honest. Everyone loves it, though. Honestly, I get the most questions about when's Timebones coming?
When is Timebones coming?
Never.
Never. Okay.
Never.
Maybe 2028.
That puts that to rest.
We have
So, is
enough
there
in
anything
front
else
of
you
us.
want to tell us about your business before we eat and say farewell?
The sauce. I mean,
It's really good.
yeah, what is the sauce?
The honey mustard.
Honey mustard.
It's difficult to put together, but it's just equal parts mustard and honey.
Now, let me tell you, I'm not an expert foodie, but I love bread kind of things. It seems to me it's very difficult to achieve what you've achieved, which is the crunchiness outside and the real softness inside. Who made those?
Yeah, we have a full bread team produced them this morning.
It's beautiful.
They're just little round balls, and we dip them in lye, which is what you have to use to get the crust.
Okay,
and
that's
then you
all right.
snip them with a scissor and salt them and bake them.
Wow.
They're great.
They're really good.
Yeah,
they're pretty
they're-
little things, too, actually.
Yeah,
They're very cute.
Very popular. Number one seller on the mothership.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can see that. The
What's
kids
the
would love them. The
website?
grown-ups would love them.
If people want the locations, all these joints, what is it?
So we have revivalcafeandkitchen.com and
remember that.
mothershipalewife.com.
Great.
And what else? I mean, we're doing a ton of events and private parties at Mothership. We have a great space. It's great for families, great for birthday parties, great for weddings. Yeah.
Do you complain about everything, too, or are you a pretty happy person?
No,
I'm a pretty happy person. I balance it
If she
out.
complains,
You do,
then it doesn't work.
Takes a lot of balance. my
Yeah,
friend.
you
It's
guys
great to
get
see
it.
you
You have a
both.
balance.
That's how I feel,
Congratulations
actually.
with
Exactly.
expansion.
Exactly.
Great to see you both.
Hey, thank you
Thanks.
very much.
you.
It's
Be
delicious,
well.
and good luck with everything. And I hope
Thank you.
I hope you get your money, Nookie, soon.
So do I. So do I.
We've
Thank
been
you so
talking
much.
Great to see you
with
again.
Stephen Nookie Postel and Liza Shirazi, co-founders of Mothership and Revival Cafe, as well as the parent company, More Hospitality Group. MothershipAlewife.com and RevivalCafeandKitchen.com are the websites to check out more information. I'll give you that again, MothershipAlewife.com and RevivalCafeandKitchen.com. Thank you so much for
Good to
coming
see you
in.
both.
Thank you
Good
for
luck.
the great
Thank you very
food.
much.
Thank you both so much.
Okay, after a quick break, the Globe's Beth Teitel just wrote a scathing indictment of CVS. We're going to open the lines to talk with you about how CVS and Target seem to be the new RMVs of Massachusetts. You're waiting in line for hours. Everything you want to buy, from toothpaste to skin cream, is behind a locked door, so you have to get somebody to open it up. And of course, that's a place where you do those automatic checkouts. What do you hear all the time? Help is on the way. Help is on the way. Help is on the way. After a short break, you're listening to Boston Public Radio. That's next, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Horwick III are here for our Arts and Culture Week in Review. We'll talk about the Super Bowl royalty, no, not Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but Queen Bee for breaking the internet with her new Country Forward album, and the Dun Kings' slam dunk of a single. From there, we look at how AI has brought Vincent van Gogh back to life and how restoration efforts could give Notre Dame an even newer life. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Innovative plans, coverage, and a broad network of doctors. Mass General Brigham Health Plan. With you every day. For more information, you can visit massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And the members of the Massachusetts Teachers Association, working together to make sure all of our public schools and colleges have what they need to help every student succeed. The MTA, over 175 years of commitment to public education.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. Obviously, we're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. We'll be at the library next Tuesday and Friday, like we always are. And February 27th, which is a Tuesday, we're here at the library with the Attorney General for an hour from 11 to 12, Andrea Joy Campbell, the Governor for an hour from noon to 1, Maura Healey. A piece out this morning in the Globe by Beth Teitel lays out how Bostonians feel compelled at all times to hold a place in their hearts for hate. Whether it's the T, the Yankees, the NFL Commissioner, Roger Goodell, possibly for some of you, Marjorie, the whole state of Florida. But for the latest subject of ire is the once beloved grocery pharmacy chain, CVS. It's not just those absurdly long receipts. It's also the horror lighting high prices for their meager grocery selection. It's the fact that soap and deodorant, this does it for me, is now locked away. And it's those broken self-service kiosks that utter that heartless, Marjorie said, it's soulless phrase we played so many times.
Please wait. Help is on the way.
Yeah, help is not on the way. For the rest of the show, the phone and text lines are open at 877-301-8970. Is there, in fact, something that needs to be called out here? Do you feel like Boston, America deserves better than CVS? Why do I need to get staff member to help me buy hand lotion? The number is 877-301-8970. By the way, with me, and I do have a thing with CVS, it is not just the receipts. What did she say in her piece? You line up 8 receipts, that's the distance to the moon, which I think...
Approximately 8 CVS receipts is between the sun and
the
planet
moon.
Earth.
Is that what it is? Okay, in any
Yeah.
case. But the bottom line is, how offended are you when you go into a store and basic things are behind a locked glass, basically saying that you're all thieves? Isn't that the
That's
message
right. That's
you're
what they
sending
are.
people?
Well, apparently we are all thieves. A lot more shoplifting going on than ever. We are all thieves. They don't arrest you when you walk out the door anymore, and so that's part of the problem.
Yeah, but they say, all the articles I read this morning say that the locked away things do not reduce overall shoplifting because people like me are so turned off by how offended we are that we don't even shop there. So the bottom line is a loss.
Well, the problem is, if you want to go check out the different skin creams, they have a lot of skin creams. I know.
They do? World than I am. I think people know that.
Be hard to keep up with you,
Thank
Jim.
you very much. Are you not offended by the fact that you go to your neighborhood pharmacy, drugstore, whatever you want to call it, and so much of the crap is behind locked glass doors?
It is upsetting. And you know, it's funny. You go to different CVS's and different stuff is locked up. One place it's electric toothbrushes. One place it's the oil of Olay. One place it's something else. I don't know how they decide that. Do people go for toothbrushes more in one neighborhood than they do in another? I don't really know.
You know what they should maybe do? Hire one extra person and not put everything behind locked cabinets. What do you think of that, Margaret?
Well, here's Angela in Rentham. She said, I want to let you know my son's fiance is a pharmacist tech at CVS. She's very nice, works very hard.
They were on
but
strike.
They were,
Yeah.
but they're understaffed, and CVS does not staff properly, and she gets called horrible names. She gets threatened and screamed at all the time from people who want prescriptions. They want her to get their orders in, etc. Very hard place to work, and CVS is not staffing people properly. So there you go. That's absolutely true. I get that. The other thing is you go there, and the lines are very long for prescriptions. Have you noticed that? On the other hand, I've gotten a lot of my vaccines
I'm a
there.
Walgreens guy because of this, by the way.
Because of what?
Because you get treated better at Walgreens.
Do you get treated better at Walgreens? I don't
Very
know.
little is behind locked things. The pharmacists are attentive and polite.
Well, they're all
and you
polite.
don't feel like you're a felon when you walk
I
into the
have
store.
found the people there at CVS are very nice. They're very
They are?
polite, and they really do painless vaccines. But I get what she's talking about. It's just kind of like we used to like CVS more than we like CVS now, and they're trying to get more involved in your life with like the mini clinic kind of thing going on. But don't you want to be able to go there and get a vaccine?
I do.
Yeah,
I go to
think that-
Walgreens
I
and
think
get a
that's
vaccine.
it. Well, I go to CVS and get a vaccine.
877
They've been very nice. Gary in Kingston, thank you for calling.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Hey, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Aggravated. Thank you, Gary. What's up?
Aggravated. Well, I do go to CVS often, but I don't think anybody should be offended by the fact that all the high-priced cosmetics and other items are locked up.
Why?
Let's face it, it's okay because it's okay to steal stuff. It seems like that's the norm. It's okay for people to go into these stores, fill their bags, and then make their way to the door and not have to pay for stuff. It's called shrinkage.
Yeah, that is what they call it.
And that's why companies like Target and CVS, look at their stock, how it plummets. It goes from $120 to a share down to like 70. That's shrinkage, and that's why it's there.
Well, let me tell you two things, if I may, Gary. One, everything I read this morning says putting stuff behind locked doors turns off locked glass doors turns off so many customers that it doesn't improve the bottom line. And secondly, instead of having things behind locked doors, my proposal, I mentioned this to Marjorie, is why don't they just strip search the customers on the way out? How about that as an alternative, Gary? No, I
Not
guess
a bad idea.
Well, I'm glad you're with me. Gary, thank you for a lot of people feel the way Gary does. And obviously the store feels the way Gary does because that's why they do it.
Well, one of the problems is that I think locking things behind closed doors sends people to Amazon because you can read all the product descriptions and what it is and what it isn't on Amazon. And you can't if you're standing there in the aisle waiting for some harried, overworked clerk to come up and open the door for you, because they can't stand there while you check out all the different products.
But that's the practical thing. I agree with your practical objection. The greater objection is it's offensive. Even if the first caller is right, are you not troubled by the fact that you go into a business, we're going to give them your money, and they feel the need, even if the caller is right, to lock stuff off because they don't trust you? Oh, it's not you, it's somebody else.
I think that they have a lot of stealing, so I guess they feel like they need to do it. It's pretty crummy.
How about getting frisked, if not a strip search? How about getting frisked on the way out?
Well, the worst thing is, the buzzers used to go off. Remember that? When
I do.
You left and you're thinking, what do I do? What do I do? And you turn around and half the times the clerks would be so busy to say, just go. You may have stolen, $2,000 worth of some whatever product it is there, and they just let you go because they're too harried. By the way, we have a whole other clip that's not just the help is on the way thing.
What is it?
We have a longer clip, don't we?
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Well, it's 3 times.
Please wait. System processing.
That drives me. Literally. It is like a torture chamber.
And you know what else? I may be a little ditzy sometimes, but basically I'm not a dope, and I can't be the only person that can't figure out. Do you put all your stuff on the left move it to the right, or do you put it on the right and move it to the left? So you think they have a sign that would say products here. Bags there, and sometimes they fool you. They have the bags where you think the product should be.
That's their goal.
So you're loading everything up, and they keep telling you you're doing it the wrong way, and then you have to wait, and you goof it up. And that's when you get the help is on the way thing. Help is on the way.
You know they have.
And I've often thought, Jim, that if you work there,
can
you imagine how many times a day you have to hear help is on the way?
Yeah, it's a
help is on the way. Thousands of times.
You know that
a day.
every CVS store has a full-time employee whose sole job is to confuse people at the checkout thing in terms of which side you bag
It's
on.
confusing. Am I right or am I right?
You're totally right.
Why don't they fix that?
I don't know, Marjorie.
Mike from Boston, thank you for calling.
Mike, maybe Mike knows. Hi, Mike.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I agree with that first caller, but I wanted to talk more about the privatization of healthcare,
please,
particularly with what's going on with Steward right now.
Oh, terrible.
I think this is very timely. So, part of the article was talking about how CVS wants to be everywhere in your healthcare, and they are understaffed on the pharmacist side. They're trying to do vaccines. They're trying to fill all this stuff. Most of the CVSs you go to now have lunch breaks, which is great because pharmacists absolutely should have that time off, but they're doing it because there's only one pharmacist. There's only one person working there. And so they have to have time off. Otherwise, they're just spending their day 12 hours running around. So, part of the issue here is that CVS is just understaffing their pharmacists, leading to these crazy lines that we all hate.
So where do you go? What do you do in response to your analysis of the private sector healthcare world, including CVS? What do you do?
I mean, I'm thankful that I don't have a lot of prescriptions.
Yeah.
I'm younger, so I don't have to be there very often. Yeah. I think the answer, unfortunately, is mail order, which is more CVS business. But I think the answer is ultimately legislation.
That would require minimum staffing?
Private money out.
Minimum staffing or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Because I think so. Because if you're saying that you want to provide health care, and pharmacists are the ones giving out vaccines, giving out health advice, there's a whole window that says talk to the pharmacist. If they've got 12 people waiting and 5 of them want to talk to the pharmacist, how much time are they really thinking about the advice or information they're giving out?
Excellent
This is healthcare, and so we need staffing levels.
Mike, you've obviously thought about this. Before you go, we had Brian McGrory, the former editor of the Globe, on the other day. He was able to discover that Ralph De La Torre, head of Steward, has 2 yachts. What is it? What do the 2 yachts cost? Is it $40 million and $19 million?
I think that's it.
Do you
One's
think he needs
190
2,
feet.
or would 1 be enough?
Guys, so just don't even get me started on Steward. I'm an ER doctor. I've worked at Steward hospitals.
And?
It's amazing to me that it took this long for people to start getting upset about it. This has been going on for years. I'm glad it's brought to light. I'm glad the Globe is shining a spotlight on it. But the fact that it's taken this long for people to be upset and annoyed, it's been going on for years.
I'm glad somebody with your perspective is doing what you do for a living, Mike. Thank you much for the call. We
I have a
appreciate
couple of texts here.
What are they?
When I worked at Target in the 90s, we had a security guard that would chase down and tackle shoplifters. the good old days. Then we have someone who says, I tried to buy underwear at Target. Someone came over to unlock the underwear cabinet and stood there watching me make my decisions on my underwear, and it was very, very uncomfortable.
You know what we do not have at my Walgreens, Marjorie? And it's on the Cambridge side of the line.
Yep.
You know what we do not have? Self-checkout kiosks.
Really?
You have to go to a human being, which is really quite a joyful experience, comparatively speaking.
You know what else people point out, and this is so true?
What's
if you
that?
go to CVS and you need something that's unlocked, I guess Rogaine and Sensodyne are two big things according to
they're
Best
expensive,
Titel.
right?
That's a big
Sensodyne's not that expensive.
Toothpaste.
Toothpaste.
Well, that's what
Okay,
they're
whatever.
locked.
Okay.
Anyway, after you get them, you can't get them and put them in your carriage
You
and then
can't?
continue shopping.
Why?
No, they have to bring them to you to the checkout counter
They do?
or to the
Why? Because you're going to put them in your pocket?
I guess that's what they think. Yeah, they say, well, bring it over to the checkout. They'll bring it over to checkout for you if you want to keep shopping, or you just have to go. So it's assuming you're a thief too, which is very upsetting. Now I don't know if this
Did you ever
is true.
shoplift anything?
When I was a kid, I did.
What'd you take?
Bathing suit.
You really did?
From Zayre's.
Do you feel bad about
We
it?
went in as a gang.
A gang?
Three
You
of
were
us.
in a gang?
Three of us, three girlfriends and I went
How
in.
old were you?
Like I was like 7 or something.
Do you feel bad about it?
I do.
No, you
We
don't.
got away with it though, Jim.
You did? Okay,
Yeah, I wore the
fine.
bathing suit for
Okay,
years.
fine.
So the CEO of CVS,
Wow.
according to her texter, makes $27 million a year.
That's all?
Can you check that?
Yeah, I will. Actually, I can't check it because he's busy on his yacht.
And here's the other
What's
thing
that?
people point out is why Amazon, as much as everybody loves to hate them, they do make things easy, right? And they have everything. So many times you go into a CVS, like safety pins. I was looking for safety pins in the CVS
Why-
in Cleveland Circle for about 2 months.
Did you really?
I finally bought them, Jim, on Amazon.
Can I tell you, that's one of the saddest stories I've ever heard.
It was a tragedy.
Before you go ahead, what do you want to say? Is this a diaper for your grandchild? What do you do with this? I don't even know what you do with a safety pin. What do you do with a safety pin?
Different things.
Like what?
Well, you can pin things, pin shirts.
Well, I know a safety pin is to pin things
Yeah.
by definition.
Yeah.
What'd you pin?
I pinned a shirt.
You did?
The button
Oh,
was
the
missing.
button
was
is-
missing.
Oh.
The button was missing.
Wow.
And in an emergency situation, I want to have pins, so if the button falls off, you can pin the shirt.
Well, how much of an emergency could it be if it took you 2 months to get the pins?
Every time I went to CVS, I looked
checked
to
it
see.
out?
I would say, you don't have any safety
How
pins.
good did it feel when they finally had them?
They never had them.
Where'd you get them?
I,
Oh, Amazon, you said. I'm
Amazon,
sorry.
that's right. Michael from Arlington, thank you
Okay,
for calling.
fine. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi. A couple of things. Number one, I think that CVS was founded by Bain Capital, Mitt Romney's company. I don't know whether they still control it, but they did for years. Number two, I got all my prescriptions for years from CVS, but then they stopped answering the phone. And when I had to wait 21 minutes, the voice said,
I shouldn't laugh.
your wait is 21 minutes. That's the day I went down and changed all my prescriptions and brought them to Walgreens.
You're a man of principle,
So they answered the
Michael.
phone.
How does that feel when you made that move in an act of rebellion? How did that feel that day?
Free at last.
Exactly.
My God, free at last.
Thank you, Michael.
listen
By the
to
way,
this one.
Zoe, excuse me, I
What?
asked you a question to which you were almost unable to answer.
Uh-huh.
But what do you do with a safety pin? Zoe says you can pierce your ears.
That's right.
You can pop animal balloons, and you create a punk rock look on your clothing. She
There you
says the
go.
options are endless. My
Okay.
apologies.
Poor Mark in Westwood, Jim. He says, try asking them to unlock the glass doors in the adult personal intimacy section. I think we can all relate to that. That's a terrible thing. And then we just got a
By the way,
text from...
sorry, nothing to do with Bain. Is that what you're going to say? Or
I don't
this
know
guy
anything about
just said
Bain.
nothing to do with Bain.
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
anything about that.
Sorry.
Mary from Massachusetts says she's a pharmacist for
Oh,
CVS, and she said,
oops.
I will tell you, it has gotten progressively worse over the last 3.5 years.
Oh, that's
they
bad.
trust their employees less than they trust their customers.
Oh, that is horrible to hear.
Yeah, but best
Do you know
time.
that? Did you know that this? I don't want to be a downer at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the show. Do you know that the suicide rate of pharmacists is one of the highest in the country because of the stress level? I don't know if you've ever been
Well,
a serious
when
note.
someone's insurance doesn't cover the
It
prescription,
is the most painful
it breaks your heart.
exchange.
Imagine
Exactly.
how bad the
and they have
pharmacists
to tell
feel.
people time after time after time. Yeah.
But Best Titel, being a good reporter, she
Yeah,
called the
what'd
PR
she say?
person
Oh,
for,
this is
for,
great.
for CVS, and he said, well, I mean, there are a lot of anecdotes. There are a lot of anecdotes. A lot of people have good experiences. Excuse me. And Best Titel points out that is true. The MBTA isn't always slow, for example, and there are some days you can take the Green Line from Longwood Stop and ride all the way to Union Square without needing to get off and take a shuttle bus or walk. So there you go. It's not always bad at CVS. I spend a lot of time at CVS. I rather like
You
it.
do? What do you
feel
like
an
about it?
attachment. I like to walk around and check out where everything is and
Yeah.
see if they have different lipsticks. Sometimes they have new
You know what you get for your
lipsticks.
birthday? Safety
CVS,
pins.
Safety pins.
Or a gift card
I
to
got them.
CVS.
I got them from Amazon. I got the safety
Do
pins.
you ever read, by the way, this is a tired subject, but let me just quickly.
Mhm.
When you get like the 8-foot long receipt.
Oh, yes.
Do you ever read to see if there's any discount that has any remote relation
Absolutely.
to you do not?
I do. I come home with my 8-foot long receipt and my scissors and I
Have
cut
you
out the
ever
ones.
used a part of a receipt for a discount?
You
Ever?
know what? I have
Tell
a
the
new-
truth.
I have
You're
a new
not looking at me.
I have a new strategy now. I put the ones I'm going to use in my wallet, and occasionally I actually remember to
You
bring
have
my wallet. Now the problem
so
with CVS,
untrue.
if you just bought like 10 gallons of milk or something, and they give you a discount on milk, you don't need the discount on the milk because you're not going to buy some more in 3 days. That's what they do. They give you the discount 2 days after the.
This is what Jamie is exactly right. It's always like $2 off when you buy $50 of
Exactly.
hand lotion. Yeah, it really applies to a lot of
I get the
purchases.
rewards.
You do?
$5.
Oh, the cash.
$10.
That's a great feeling,
That's very
isn't it?
exciting.
That's
Yeah,
really
I have my little
exciting. It's
care
like
pass.
winning
You
a
know what else they
lottery.
do?
No, I
they
don't.
harass you about your prescriptions.
They do?
They're always texting you to say, "Can we refill this?" And you have to keep telling them no. And they ask you like every other day. I mean,
You ever read the fine print? I get those too. You ever read the fine print?
What do they say?
It says your prescription is due. In very small print, it says, sadly, we have no pharmacist. So it's the good news is your prescription is ready. The bad news is you can't get it.
yeah. Colleen from Jamaica Plain. What do you think, Colleen?
Hey, Colleen, what's up? Hello.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on retail a little more in general. That there was a nice article about the CEO of Lowe's and how he has kept down his shrinkage and managed to open more stores rather than closing stores because he's staffing appropriately and not adding self-checkout lanes.
Great. Oh,
and so he's focusing on making sure that retail experience is actually pleasant. So
Good for him.
Kind of reiterate what you're saying, Jim, but it seems like there is a case study that says, yeah, that does work.
But wait a second, Colleen, did you say that he also, is this Lowe's? Is that what you said? I missed the beginning. Lowe's?
Yeah, Lowe's.
And did you say they don't lock, do they lock stuff away or they don't?
No,
That's
they're saying
great.
that they don't. Now, I haven't been to a store myself recently, but I read the article was interesting, and he was saying they don't. So
That's
I hope
great.
it's true.
Really glad you called, Colleen. Thank you. By the way, you know what we failed to mention
What?
today? That this Caitlin Clark yesterday with a 35-foot three-pointer at Iowa shattered the all-time women's scoring record.
Yeah, she's
and she's
really
very
something.
close, within 100 points of shattering Pete Maravich's all-time college basketball men or women's scoring record, which is pretty incredible.
Boy, we have a lot of people who feel passionately
What are
about
they saying? Give us.
CVS.
We don't have much time. What?
Well, Susan in Brookline says,
she
my
say?
daughter waited 5 days for an antibiotic prescription to be filled at CVS. So many people saying they should prosecute shoplifters to the full extent of the law. Journalists need to investigate. I mean, I can't read them all, Jim. They're going too fast.
Well, I think you should investigate, actually, Marjorie, as the real
Okay.
journalist. And
Okay.
Susan. By the way, the show's over. I don't know if you're aware.
Oh, I'm
See
sorry.
what happens when it says 2 minutes? You
All
know
right.
what that means?
Sorry.
It
I was
means we
still
gotta
reading the
go.
text messages.
That's it.
Okay, well, anyway, thank everyone who listened to our show today.
Yes, thank you
And
all.
you can listen to us 24/7 by way of our podcast if you
Mhm.
care to. We have a 3-hour podcast.